What's up, everyone? This is your host, Ghost, coming to you live. with Another wonderful video. How is everyone doing today? Doing well myself. Sorry for the late start, per usual. Ugh, just tired, fucking hell. Goddamn. Yeah. So, I'm just tired. I really got nothing left for you except to say I'm tired. Um, I had to take care of some stuff while I was upstairs. Anyways, yeah. So what is up, everyone? Sorry about yesterday. I had some family stuff I had to take care of, and I just need to get some more sleep. Yeah, actually start going to sleep on time. I'm going to sleep late. Anyways, so what we got today? So we're gonna check out the debate that happened Friday between David Smith and Chris Cuomo. I know Chris Cuomo well. He was a former leftist. Anchor on CNN. Seen some of his talks. Seems to go, fairly well. He seems to be far more reasonable now that he no longer is getting paid by CNN. But again, that could be just a grift, so who knows? But anyways, the reason I'm doing this is because I got like I saw a bit of a clip. And it was Dave Smith pointing out, how Chris Cuomo was pushing the whole ivermectin thing with Joe Rogan and shaming Joe Rogan for it and all that stuff, and basically was owning Chris Cuomo on this. So I figured, hey, did he own him this entire time? I don't know. Let's find out. So yeah, so per my normal policy is going to have it sped up to 1.5. We're going to watch it like that, and yeah, we'll go from there. Some little housekeeping. Follow me on X at officialwghost. That's the best way to find out when I go live and what I am up to. You can also watch me live. Rumble is rumble.com/withghost. That's the main channel. Wherever I'm streaming, I will be streaming on Rumble. So YouTube is youtube.com/@withghost. Twitch.tv/officialwithghost. And then, of course, I have my gaming channel, which I have not been doing a lot of gaming. It's rumble.com/gamingwithghost and youtube.com/@officialgamingwithghost. So those are my various channels. I am trying to go back into doing some gaming streams, but I've been busy at night and just spending some time with my wife before I go back to work. So, sorry about that. So let's get started. Yeah, I think that's all housekeeping. So I skipped through the introductions, and I am just at the point where Dave Smith apparently is explaining why he wants to debate Chris Cuomo. So let's have a look. See. Now this is a 3 hour and 10-minute podcast or stream, whatever. I do have the link to the video if you'd like to watch it yourself. More than welcome to.
You see the podcast.
Excuse me. What? I have a hard out in 2 hours and 15 minutes. So if I'm not done by then, I'm gonna have to pop smoke, and we'll see if I end up doing, if it ends up getting interesting later on. And this might be a two-parter, but we'll see. All right, let's get to it.
You see a couple things that Chris said. You reacted to it, and obviously it's very obvious you have strong opinions about it to say, how I want to make this happen. What prompted you to want to say, Pat, I want to have this discussion? Well, look, I mean, you made a video addressing a lot of your fans, because I think I'm far from the only one who had this reaction. Let me just say before we start this thing, thank you to Pat. You're the man for setting this whole thing up. And thank you to Chris, because I think it's an honorable move that you are here doing this debate, and I really appreciate that. For all the people out there who were giving Pat a hard time for bringing Chris on board the network, hey, this moment doesn't happen unless he does that. So I do agree that open discourse and open debate is always healthy for society, and I think it's great that we're doing this. So I will say, number one, I came with a gift. for Chris. This is, and I really hope you read this, this is the definitive book on the COVID regime. It's called Diary of a Psychosis, How Public Health Disgraced Themselves During the COVID Mania. It's written by Tom Woods. And of course, the foreword is by the great Jay Bhattacharya, who, if you guys don't know, absolutely brilliant doctor over at Stanford, who was one of the signers of the declaration out there in Great Barrington Declaration. Thank you. I'm already stumbling and someone saved me in the audience. Thank you very much. Here you go. This is for you.
Yeah, this looks like to be a live audience too. Debate like in front of a live audience, which is fairly interesting.
Please read it. It's excellent. I know you like following the science, and there's a whole lot of science in that book. Look, I think
great way to start with a gift. You know what? Very sweet of you.
Well, listen, I don't have PBD bank accounts. I can't come through with Lenny Bruce's microphone, but it's a nice book.
I got to tell you, Bill, what I didn't appreciate about the Dave, he wanted me to not only fly him in a private jet, he wanted a business Boeing jet. Listen, that request was across the line. I'm telling you right now.
I requested an Uber Comfort. Okay, that was the most I ever requested on this. But I think that a lot of us in this world, whatever you consider this world, we call it podcasts, but it's kind of an outdated term. None of us have iPods anymore, but for some reason that name just stuck. But in this world of shows on the internet, whether it's Pat's show or my show, Joe Rogan's show, Glenn Greenwald has a show, Tim Pool has, all these people have shows. And we all disagree about so many things. But the one thing we kind of all agree about in this area is that we opposed the COVID insanity. That was kind of the thing that united all of the shows on the internet that are big. And it was a strange fit for you to come from CNN into this world. It kind of reminds me, it's like Dick Cheney trying to join the anti-war movement or something like that. And the truth is that what really was I think, incredible to me and to many people was that it was kind of amazing to watch you admit so many of the things that you admitted on the podcast with Pat. But at the same time, you laughed off the idea of an apology. Yeah. Your first thing you said was apology. No way. There's no way. And then you proceeded to go on to confirm what all of us had known for so long. But you, sir, were smearing people like us for having this view. You were, at the time when the COVID insanity struck, you were the #1 show at CNN. A time when the nation was going through a major crisis and totalitarianism swept throughout all 50 states. Actually,
and then shortly, not long after the COVID was all done with, he got fired from CNN or he left CNN. I can't remember which it was. No, his entire business model, Chris Cuomo's entire business model crashed when COVID ended, and everyone saw him for a charlatan. And everyone, and then he lost the show. So it's kind of funny.
-1, I think South Dakota never had lockdowns. 49 out of the 50 states went totalitarian.
They didn't have lockdowns, but they did have a dog get killed at 13 months. I think that's what happened in South Dakota. We got to get the fact.
It was something I think Kim Jong-un was involved. I'm not sure about the details. But during this moment, we really needed people, especially people who had a big platform. You were the #1 show at CNN, which is huge, almost as big as this show. And
this is why I stopped shopping on Amazon, and you should too. Don't spend another dime on Amazon.
And it seems to me that you, rather than doing what your job should have been at the time, which was to be skeptical of power and to shine a light against the propaganda, it seems like you ate up every single piece of propaganda, repeated all of it without any thought to whether it was true or not, and then smeared millions of Americans, like myself, who were opposed to this stuff. So that's where my beef is.
Chris, I understand your beef. Why would I not apologize? An apology is when you say something that you shouldn't have said, that was wrong to say, that you said for bad reason, or you're trying to hurt. None of those apply. I hear your understanding of the pandemic. I don't agree. I lived it closer than you in many ways, closer than any of you probably in many ways. And there were absolutely mistakes.
Hold on. You lived it closer than us. We were all living it the same way. Okay. The difference is a lot of stuff that we were saying about COVID turns out to be fucking true. A lot of what you said about the COVID wasn't true at all. So, I mean, it's not the same. Like, what is this? What is this?
Mistakes made. The idea that it was a totalitarian regime, that's hyperbole. My main reason for wanting to discuss this with you guys, I do this for 3 reasons. A lot of people would say the first is that I'm a self-loader, and I like to set myself up in very bad situations. Maybe not. I think there's a huge mistake being made in ignoring this conversation. Now, you say this world of podcasts. You're having a very limited definition of podcasts. You, Rogan, Pool, this is a very small part of what the podcast world is, right? You have a lot of different ideologies there. The media, the power structures, do not understand why I would be here right now. I got the same message. I did a lot of prep for tonight because, frankly, this was years ago, and I had to go back and understand the context of time, look at what you were saying at the time. And frankly, the idea that you were ahead of understanding is like saying a broken clock is right twice a day. You didn't like things. You were right to not like them. I didn't like them. But to say you knew things is not accurate in terms of what I've seen and what you put out. They were operating on guesses. Now, that gets much more powerful when we get into the vaccine. But in terms of the pandemic in general, the idea that we were doing things in the United States that were just so crazy is demonstrably false because it was happening everywhere else in the world. So it's not like just the US decided to go batshit crazy and I couldn't wait for the ride. That's not the case. Why I'm doing this is, here's my big concern. I have no problem with you laying into me. And I think you're funny, and I think you're smart, and I understand why he believes in you. I do. Because I didn't know who you were. Now I've listened to 19 hours of what you do. Why you want to call yourself, as somebody who ever wants to be in politics, Legion of Skank, I have no idea why you want to identify with that word. But we'll talk about that after this tonight.
Sure.
Here's what I want, okay? And Pat knows this already. Do we know what the vaccine is doing in people's bodies right now? No. Do we know what COVID is doing in people's bodies right now? No. I talked this week in preparation to be with you guys to 2 different people who are at the top of the research ladder of long COVID. That is a very pale distinction. They are paying very little attention to this. There are millions of people for whom COVID is not over. Every researcher I talked to said, we are understanding now that the reach of COVID, the flu that we have now is from 1918, right? Everybody knows that. It's just changed over time. They believe that this is happening with the COVID virus, which is in part why it's important to know where it came from, and they shouldn't have surrendered that. And we can talk tons about it, and I can talk to the doll as if it were Tony, but I don't believe that he should be the boogeyman in this. I think China's the boogeyman, and they can't get at China, so they go with Tony. But we'll have the conversation. I want people to recognize and get behind a common cause. That's why I'm here, okay? This is not set up to go well for me. That's okay. I've been beaten up by people I'd rather be around much less than you guys. So this is a step up. There has to be a review of the entire pandemic, a 9/11 style commission, where you get people who Dave likes, who
The 9/11 commission wasn't good either. He still ended up going to war. Like, come on. Like 9/11, we ended up going to war with the wrong people. I don't think anyone's been punished for that. So I hope I understand what he means by style commission. We need a deep background view of everything, but there needs to be some punishment at the end. I don't think anyone who promoted the falsity of 9/11 ever got really punished, if I remember correctly.
Pat likes, who scientists like, who the right likes, who the left likes. We did the same thing after 9/11, and it worked. None of them were currently in office. All of them were respected enough. They had a diverse set of opinions. They looked at the situation. They came up with a set of directives, and we followed almost none of them. So it can be flawed as well. You have to look at what you didn't like early on. Masks, lockdowns, understanding of the case structure, what we did in schools, what we did in communities, what we did with businesses. Then came Operation Warp Speed, what we did with that. Then came the implementation of the vaccine, how we did that, and why. Mandates. All of it should be reviewed, because I'm going to tell you something. No disrespect, okay? I study this all the time, okay? Sometimes I'm taken out of context. I'm not vaccine injured. I had my symptoms before I got vaccinated. Could the vaccine be doing something to my body? Maybe. I don't mean to sound conspiratorial about it, but they do know that what they didn't know, and I'm sorry if it's too in the weeds, but I tell you, we can't just talk around this with clever slogans and digs. It's not helping us. We're not getting anywhere, okay? They now know that what they didn't know at the time of the vaccine development, even though they used it for AIDS and Zika and Ebola, they didn't know that when they put it in my body and they put it in your body,
Never made it into mine.
the rates, look.
Now, the Vanish holster is the most comfortable holster that you're ever going to own. I promise you that. And the reason for that is I designed.
You can applaud it as a choice.
I tried to do this on Rumble. I couldn't find the goddamn video on Rumble.
But there are several facts, okay, that we know. One is they didn't know how much spike protein my body would make or for how long versus his, okay? And that is huge in terms of deciding what kind of complications you can have. The idea that the vaccine is poison is demonstrably false. How do we know? Because of what happened once people started taking the vaccine here and everywhere else in the world. The correct pushback to that is, no, it hurt as many people as it did. That's bullshit. The correct pushback is, not everybody needed to take it. And you made everybody take it. And you shouldn't have. That is a legitimate grievance.
We've all made that grievance. We all talked about that. Not everyone needed to be in lockdown, but you all fucking did it, and you were championing it. You were championing the vaccine and everything as well. So what are you talking about? We did make those grievances. We made the grievance that, hey, not everyone needed to participate in lockdowns. What we had, the information at the time, what we had was, hey, the fuck's the word I'm looking for? Hey, this is really affecting old people and immune compromised people. So we should probably make sure those people, stay out of public for a bit, and everyone else goes about the day. That's what a lot of people were championing, and none of that happened.
I don't know the answer to that. I believe that with the later variants, we now know that this vaccine didn't do what it did with the earlier ones, and they should have changed the messaging, and they didn't. We know that. I'm here to have the conversation. You tell me what you're upset about. I'll deal with it. We'll talk about why I said what I said. I have no secrets. But what I want is not to slap Dave around in a debate, and not to be clever, and not to get applause, and not for you to want to take pictures with me.
Yeah, he's not going to get any of those, I'm guessing.
At the end of the night, I want you to go home and say, sheesh, we got to know a lot more about this. And nobody is looking. That commission we have one in Congress, and then I'll shut up, is a sham, okay? Where did it come from? Tony Fauci. We know where it came from. It came from China. We know where it was. It was in a lab We know who was working on it. It was
Interesting. Weren't you part of the left that were championing the fact that, oh no, this isn't from China, it's a natural blah blah blah, and pushing back on everything that the right was saying? We were all saying it's like this is from China, and then you on the left were saying no, it's not. It's not from China. We can't blame China for this.
China. We know who won't let us look in the lab. It's China. So that's your answer. But what about all these other questions? They don't even care about them. The Trumpiest politicians that I talk to won't touch any of the things that we are talking about right now. That's what I want to change, and I'm happy to have the conversation.
All right, can I respond? Because there was a lot there, so I want to try to respond to it.
Sure, I didn't mean to flood the zone.
No.
Take it one by one.
We can go one by one. Okay, first of all, when I describe the lockdowns that swept this nation in 2020 as totalitarian, just to be clear, I'm not being hyperbolic. When you're waking up every morning to watch your TV, to find out from your governor what you're allowed to do today, including am I allowed to go to work? Am I allowed to have a funeral for my father? Am I allowed to see my family? Am I allowed to step outside without a cover on my face? There is one word and one word only for that, and that is totalitarianism. I'm sorry. That's not slightly hyperbolic. Now, you could argue that this totalitarianism was justified because of the virus, but it's certainly not, and it's not, but you could argue that, but it certainly is totalitarian. If we ever looked on paper, any of us at any point pre-COVID, and said this government is instituting this policy, we would all recognize that as being totalitarian, as totalitarian as any society has ever existed. If that word doesn't apply to lockdowns, then it doesn't apply to anything. Now, I got to say, listen, in this world,
Yeah, and also you weren't allowed to visit people in the hospitals. You weren't allowed to do fuck all. Like now, there's some places that were worse. Okay, Australia, stuff like that. There's other places that were far worse than the U.S. when it came to this. But yeah, it was absolutely totalitarianism. Like it'd be one thing is like we suggest you wear masks. You don't have to. We suggest you do this. We don't have to. Blah 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 blah. It'd be one thing if the government was saying we suggest this. It is up to you whether you do this. That wouldn't be totalitarianism, even if, like, from a government sense. Now, if it was, the government saying, all right, we suggest people do this, it is up to you if you do this, and then a bunch of companies did this, still wouldn't be totalitarianism on the government's part. It would just be them suggesting something and people following through those suggestions. What happened was they mandated, you have to do this. You have to do this. That's what made it totalitarianism. None of these were suggestions. They were all mandatory things you had to do. So this whole like, oh, it's hyperbolic to say totalitarian. No, it's fairly accurate. It's fairly accurate. That's what this was.
And I'll say this is true for our world, for the corporate media, for any time you're getting in front of a camera with a lot of people watching and talking about things that matter. The currency that we trade in is the truth. That's the whole currency. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be right about everything, but it has to mean that I really believe what I'm saying. And if I'm lying to the audience, then I've betrayed my most fundamental duty. And I would also put as a subset of lying, if I'm pretending I know something that I don't know at all, and I'm taking a very strong opinion, and with 5 minutes of research, you could find out that this is completely false, that's another form of lying. Now, sir, you have completely shirked all of your responsibility, and now you're pointing the finger at China. By the way, you were one of the people who demonized Donald Trump for calling it the China virus at the time, okay? So when it was convenient for
There we go. So yeah, I was making that point. It's like, weren't you the one who was demonizing people for calling it a China virus? Now you're like, oh, it is China.
For you had no problem smearing someone for pointing the finger at China. Your entire network also called everyone racist if we speculated that it came from the lab. I mean, literally, I did a podcast. It was either in April or May of 2020 when it already became obvious at that point that the lab was at least a very plausible, like we found out that 3 of the people at the lab went to the hospital with COVID-like symptoms, and there was a lab where they were doing gain-of-function research. And it was like, man, this sure does look like it. I had to stop talking about it for 4 months after that because I would have lost my entire YouTube channel, that was it. It was very clear if you said anything about that for months, you'd be shut down. During that time, you guys at CNN were just mocking everybody who would dare say it was a lab leak, and then we were unable to defend ourselves, or those who did got their livelihoods.
I don't know what was happening on YouTube. I just want to be clear. I was not doing that. When Donald Trump started off, he was calling it the
China virus.
No, not initially. Initially, he said it was going to go away. It was cold. I don't fault him for that. He was getting a lot of mixed information, and I know it. I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, like how he's like diving from that. We're not giving Donald Trump shit for being wrong. For being, I mean, it was mostly like a cold trip, actually. But we're talking about the China virus, and you guys bitching about him calling it the China virus.
He will be blamed for it, not by me. Then it gets bad. That's when he started calling it the China virus. I said to him, in the beginning, you said China's been great to us. You can Google it. You can have that great producer you have. Look it up. China's been great. China's been working with us.
Shout out to you, Rob.
China's been great. Yeah, Rob, you're amazing. Then,
yeah, again, that was when he had a certain when he had that information, and then when he had a different information, he was like, "Oh, this is from China, China."
and it gets bad for Trump. Trump then starts calling it the China virus. I have always pursued the lab leak. I have always talked about it. I have always said it mattered. You can check and find out.
Let's.
You can
this?
boo, but remember,
listen,
that's about preference.
Yeah, but Chris,
truth.
do you not feel any responsibility for the fact that during this time, in the greatest crisis in modern American history, that you're up there, and we'll get into the vaccine stuff in a second, but just sticking with the lockdown period, you are interviewing your brother, the lockdown governor, every day, giving him the most softball interviews. I remember at one point when the scandal with
they weren't.
Hold on, you got a nice big rant. So in the middle of lockdown,
rant for rant.
Sure. So in the middle of lockdowns, think about, this is more a comment on the network CNN than it is on you, but you said at one point, a couple years later, or over a year later, when your brother had his scandal. By the way, I respect you for always defending your brother. I would always defend my brother. I understand that. But you said on air on CNN, you said, listen, I haven't been allowed to this at all because it would be a conflict of interest for me to cover it. Yet during lockdowns, every single night, CNN allowed you to have the interview of your brother without any meaningful pushback at all. Listen, I understand this is your family I'm talking about, and I don't mean to make things personal in that way.
You kind of do, but I'm open to it.
Well, no, I mean, I don't, but I have no other choice.
Like, you could be accurate, which is...
No, I'm being accurate.
You're not, because nobody thought...
What did I say that was inaccurate?
Nobody thought the interviews I was doing with Andrew were news interviews.
Well, no one I know thinks anything on CNN is news.
Okay.
But...
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not
Fucking ads.
That's fine.
No, when it's on the cable news network, the presumption is that this is news.
Hold on. How many people in this room thought that when I was interviewing my brother, it was going to be a hardball interview, and that's why you were watching? Because this is what Chris Cuomo is known for.
Yeah, but that's the whole point.
Come on.
But that's the point.
But he was other places giving interviews all day long. He was coming on at that time with me because people were enjoying the dynamic of getting some sense of familiarity and comfort in an uncomfortable.
No, that's complete bullshit. We assumed you were going to look, I don't watch CNN, okay? But if I was a CNN watcher, I would assume on a news network, okay, during the news segment stuff, that if you're interviewing your brother, you are planning to ask him some hardball questions, or at least, hey, look, there's this going on. We're getting this information. Tell me what you're thinking, blah, blah, blah. No, no one gave a shit about the dynamic between the Cuomo brothers. No one cared. No one fucking cared.
Time. That's what the draw was. He was getting asked questions all over the place. What I said I couldn't cover wasn't him in COVID. It was him in anything. It wasn't going to be a serious news interview. And what I was talking about specifically was not Andrew and COVID. It was his allegations.
No, I know.
Who wants to hear me talk about my brother's allegations and think I'm being...
No, it's a clear conflict of interest, as was you interviewing him about lockdown.
Well, it's not like that's the only place he was on during
here's
COVID.
one person in cable news who did some real journalism, okay? Tucker Carlson he got Governor Murphy from New Jersey on his show. And he asked him one simple question that was never asked of any of the other lockdown governors. And you know what the question was? He had just shut down, it was either a church or a synagogue, I can't remember. And he goes, oh, wait a minute. So you just shut down this temple and arrested people for worshiping. Where do you get the authority to do that? Because I've read the First Amendment, and it's pretty clear that you have the freedom of religion. And so where do you get the authority to shut that down? And you know what Governor Murphy said? He said, well, I'm not thinking about the Constitution. That's above my pay grade. So let me, just to make this clear, okay? Yeah, it sure is. But you know what? Your brother and none of the rest had a better one. They just never got asked that question. So here's nothing to do with the First Amendment. Yeah, of course it does, Chris. Here's the bottom line. There's no clause in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights that says, unless there's a virus that we don't know that much about and then this all goes away. The point is that it was completely criminal for all of these governments to lock down. They had no authority to derive.
Not to mention, at one point, they were preventing people from worshiping, social distance with masks outside and everything. They were preventing that. But then you could go and protest and shout right next to your person, right next to somebody without a mask and shit. Okay, so we got two First Amendment rights going on, and one was allowed and one wasn't. Don't forget about that.
The right to lock down a state from. And yet you, instead of anyone at CNN thinking, hey, if we have Andrew Cuomo on here every single night, maybe someone should ask him that question. They went, no, give him a cushy interview with his brother. Like, you don't find that incredibly corrupt?
No, and here's why. Is that the only place that the governor of New York was? Is that the only access to media that they had to him? So your criticism really goes to all media, but really what it is an extension that you didn't like the lockdowns. It's not about whether there was legal authority.
Yeah, of course not.
That's why there's been no lawsuit in the lockdowns that has proceeded in one. Because it wasn't about the authority of the government to use emergency measures in public safety situations. It's about whether they should have. And I'm totally fine with that. And you saw them all over the world, many more severe than they were in the United States and for longer. But is it worth reviewing? Yes. What I'm saying is that my criticism would be that your interest is about how it generates attention. And that's fine, but it won't fix. I'm telling you right now, if God forbid something happened again, we would be lost about how to do it differently. And you'd have a pocket of people, 25, 35%, who say, I'm not going to do it. And you would lose.
You would have far more than that. After COVID, I would guarantee there's going to be a lot more people than 25, 35%. No, there's going to be a lot more people who are like, yeah, I remember what happened last time. You guys were fucking lying. And everything that the right was saying about the lockdowns and COVID and all that turned out to be true, while everything you guys said was pretty much bullshit. So yeah, this next really big one, I'm not going to believe anything you're fucking saying, and I'm going to ignore what you're saying. That's what's going to end up happening.
Lose that case again.
You know, it's really wild, Chris, for you to psychoanalyze me and say my interest here is in generating attention. You're the guy who went at CNN, said everything to defend the vaccine when you were being sponsored by Big Pharma, and all of a sudden now that you're here on PBB show, you'll say the truth. No, but for
I'm
you
not
to
sponsored by Big Pharma.
No,
I'm not
your
against the
network
vaccine.
Hold on. You're not even listening to what I'm saying. You're attacking my motive, saying all I care about is generating interest. Meanwhile, when those CNN checks were coming in, you said nothing that would have put them in jeopardy. But now that you're here, you're starting to tell a little bit of the truth.
So hold on. No, it's not. That's not true. I don't have a changed opinion about the vaccine.
Chris, go look at the montages of what you were saying then to what you're saying now. And you don't have a changed opinion.
Absolutely not. And when Pat put out this clip, look, we can talk about it. I'm not offended by the questions or the suggestion. Here's why. Pat said that I wouldn't take it again if I could do it over again. It's not what I said. If they wanted me to take a booster right now, my doctors say it's not working for me. I have as much natural immunity as I'm going to get. I got as much hybrid immunity as I could get. You make the same decisions. They don't have the mandates the same way, except with kids in school protocols, which again I think should be on the table to discuss because we are an outlier when it comes to our kids in schools and the vaccine. The vaccine, let's talk about it. What is your beef about the vaccine? Do you believe it didn't work?
No, it certainly didn't work at all in the way it was sold. When we spoke and I asked you about the vaccine to qualify this and clarify it, I said, if 2026, the second COVID comes in, and they mandate taking vaccines, would you take it? You said no.
I thought we're talking about like if they need me to take another one for this virus.
No, I specifically asked if another COVID comes out and they force us to take vaccines, knowing what you now know now, would you take it again? You said no. Just to qualify, that's what
I thought we were talking about. If it's this virus, well, why would I lie? Why would I lie about it?
Why would you lie? I don't know, because you're realizing, man, I really made myself look stupid during COVID.
Just show something. Let me just show something. Guy, I want to show something because you said a couple things here. For me, you have to know I'm America first, period. I'm about us figuring out a way to make this the greatest country in the world and keep it the greatest country in the world. That's what my priority is, period. My kids are here. I have 4 kids here. We all have kids. We're all family folks. We want to make sure this place is a safe place and the greatest country in the world. Now, you said something. I got the question for you. You said they tried to make Fauci the boogeyman.
Yes.
Right. Brother, when 9/11 happened, the one thing that they did during 9/11, they made somebody else the enemy. We all came together.
Yes.
During COVID, they never made China the enemy. Pelosi went to Chinatown claiming how racist it was for what Trump did. And instead of making China the enemy, we made Trump the enemy. And America became divided. And that's why we had the shit show that we have today. So when you're saying like now we want to make Fauci the enemy,
right? I
have a problem with that because look how wild.
Wait, those are two different things. Explain it to me.
It's not two different things
How?
because, well, you just said, instead of making China the boogeyman, we're making Fauci the boogeyman. Yes. In 2020 March, instead of making China the boogeyman, we made Trump the boogeyman. That's what you did. CNN did that.
No, that's not what I did.
So CNN didn't make Trump the boogeyman.
Trump has always been the boogeyman for most of the media.
Right, but
it wasn't about COVID. Well, I'm just telling you, it wasn't about COVID.
Well, he certainly was the boogeyman. Yes, he was the boogeyman far before COVID.
Sure.
When you guys were repeating mindlessly every day that there was some giant conspiracy with Trump and Russia and leading the entire country to believe that our election had been stolen by a hostile foreign power and that Vladimir Putin had, and once again, like we won't get out of you tonight, not one apology from anyone at CNN when it turns out there was zero evidence that was true. And you could say we just guessed right, but all of us who were paying attention knew from the very beginning that this was totally made up. And of all the things you could say about Donald Trump,
how could you have known right from the very beginning that it was totally made up?
Because it was the most absurd claim ever. That when the CIA comes out and says Vladimir Putin has overthrown our elections and installed Donald Trump in there and presents zero evidence to back it up.
That's not the investigation. That's not the allegation.
Well, no, but it was what people on your former network said daily.
Listen,
it was what people
not
on
only
MSNBC
have I never said that Russia put in Trump.
So
I've never had anyone on my show who
Chris,
said that.
let's just be honest here for a second.
Go ahead.
Are you going to genuinely tell me that CNN and MSNBC did not every day for 3 years give the impression that Donald Trump was involved in a conspiracy with the Russians?
They absolutely covered the investigation into Donald Trump from a special prosecutor every day. MSNBC did it differently, I would argue, than CNN.
Why was that special prosecutor appointed?
Why was it appointed? Because the Attorney General thought he should be.
Here's why. And he admitted it himself on 60 Minutes, if any of you guys want to go back and listen to it. Andrew McCabe, the number 3 guy at the Justice Department, said after Donald Trump fired Comey, these are his words, not mine. After he fired Comey, they decided to try to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him on the grounds that he was unstable. And they realized they couldn't get enough of his cabinet to do it, so they settled on a special prosecutor. That's why. Not a single one of them thought he was a Russian spy. Let me tell you something. Carter Page, the one guy who got in trouble from the FBI, as I'm sure you guys both know. Why did he get in trouble? Because he lied to the FISA court. Because the CIA told the FBI that Carter Page was their guy. They knew he wasn't a Russian spy. The whole thing was complete nonsense just to frame Donald Trump so he couldn't get his agenda through. And CNN ran with it every single day. Unquestioning about the story.
I don't see it the same way. I don't think it was about keeping Donald Trump from having an agenda. I do think there is a problem with prosecuting political opponents. And I do think that both of the parties engage in it. And I think it's another signal that the party system has to die.
All right.
I agree with that. There is no world in which you can be skeptical to the extent that they're sharing information with you. But when you have a special prosecutor, right, or special counsel, whatever you want to call it, and they are doing an investigation, you're going to cover it. And you're going to look at the information that they're saying coming out. And of course, there's always copious leaks because the politicians involved. And you're going to do it. Fox did it also, and they started doing it less and less as they believed that it wasn't working for their audience, which I understand the consideration. You can judge it any way you want. MSNBC was working very well. For CNN, it was more of a balance. But the idea, it was because I had a show there. And
CNN ranged from Democrats who hate Donald Trump to Republicans who hate Donald Trump and everything in between.
Look, they were one of the only people who put Republicans on the payroll to talk about Trump.
Which Republicans?
We certainly didn't get that at MSNBC. We had Santorum.
Santorum, right.
You don't like him either?
No.
He liked
Who
Trump.
likes Rick Santorum?
He liked Trump. Although they did come up with a terrible name for what is a Santorum.
I'm familiar.
Terrible. That was terrible that they did that to him, although he found it pretty funny. Anyway, the point is this. I will defend CNN. And I know some people think that's strange because I got shit canned by CNN. I understand. I don't see it that way. I definitely got fired, but that doesn't mean I'm going to blame CNN. I'll defend it. However, it is not fair to make me own everything that CNN does because I don't control anything but my show.
Okay, fair enough. So that's fair. I'm also being critical of CNN here, but I will say, disclaimer for the rest of the show, anything I criticize CNN, that's true. You don't own the entire network. You only own your portion of it. So let me ask you.
I couldn't have that much power. I got fired.
Fair enough. Okay, so let me ask you about what you do own, and in the spirit of we're being honest here, and our currency is the truth. Your reemergence from your basement, real or fake?
Yes. you want the answer? I'll give it to you. All right. Here's what I was told. The short answer is real. Here's what I was told.
You were quarantined that whole time in your basement?
Yeah.
You didn't leave?
Oh, yeah. No. This is what happened. I was quarantined the time I needed to be. I forget. There was 3 days with fever below 99 or whatever the number was. You guys vaguely remember the same as I. I had a problem. I had fever for a very long time. They didn't understand why. It had something to do with how my body was responding to the spike protein we now know based on my blood test now. I got to that point of being allowed to leave, but I still had fever because my natural body temperature is not 98.6, it's 97.6. So for me, being just under 100 or whatever the level was, I forgot, Rob, they can find out what the level was. I had it, but I didn't feel comfortable because I still felt sick. And at the time, the biggest names in our government who I was in contact with couldn't tell me what was the safest thing to do because I was afraid to get my family. So what they said was, do it in stages. So I would kind of come upstairs with the N95 on and I would try to get some energy, walk up and down the stairs. Then it was, I'm gonna come upstairs, the house was, because my wife was taking care of everybody because everybody was getting sick. And I would do a little bit of cleaning, come back down. Still wasn't living upstairs. Then I would come up, I'd start cooking because my wife got sick from me. That's a great thing to have over your spouse, by the way. So I then started coming up more and I phased up and in. Our youngest, when I was coming up, finally I could move upstairs. Everybody was good with it. Christina had gotten sick. Mario had gotten sick. The other two hadn't. It had been about 10 days past when I was supposedly allowed to come up. But again, I still felt like shit. And I knew that I had a fever. I didn't have a fever by their definition, but I had a fever. So then when it was finally over, they took a picture of me coming upstairs. There was so much appetite to take me down that was seized on, as it was that I wasn't quarantining because I was seen in Southampton driving around with my family. No, I wasn't. I was seen in my own backyard in East Hampton. And a guy drove into my backyard and saw me there and came walking over and said terrible things to my wife and kids and then sued me for it. So that's what happened.
But so wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm confused because that was such a long answer for such a short question.
I quarantined in the basement. The picture that
you
you
were
saw,
outside with your family in the middle of it.
No, not in the middle. It was after the period where they said I could come out, but I didn't feel right about it. So I was doing it in phases. And the photo was from when that's it. I'm not staying in the basement anymore. I can be back up. I can sleep in my room. I can do everything normal.
So you're telling me that that guy, his
Rob, what is that? What is that?
Was,
that's me coming out of the basement.
After his confrontation with you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And look, the confrontation again. Look, you and I live in different media realities, okay? There is a currency to taking people down in media, okay? I mean, podcasts aren't strangers to that either, certainly the Skank one, but it's a different reality for us, okay? They want to take you down. And during COVID, people were pissed off about what was going on. I was one of the people who they blamed. And they would come after me. Well, I had people come after me for not wearing a mask when I took a job.
Well, listen, I mean, yeah, because you were a part of this corporate media apparatus that was shaming everyone who wasn't wearing masks outside, even though it was completely anti-science, rooted in nothing but pseudoscience. And might the reason be that so many people were angry at you guys? Because this is always one of the things that's been really fascinating to me. And I worked for CNN, or I worked for Turner for about a year. This is before COVID. It was in 2017. It was always really fascinating to me to get a sense of the culture in that building. And, by the way, before COVID, trusted media had evaporated and reached all-time lows. After COVID, the corporate media will never recover. I mean, they are done. And it was always interesting to see how people at CNN would grapple with that. I mean, when Jim Acosta was sent out to Trump rallies and they'd be screaming, CNN sucks. And then there'd be these segments on CNN about what a hostile environment it was for Acosta, and this poor guy. And then every week, Brian Stelter would have a different show about why no one trusts the media anymore. And the report would always be, we're doing a great job. It's just this misinformation online. It's just Trump. It's just everyone else. And no one in the corporate media world, because they're insulated in such a bubble, seems to be capable of recognizing that the reason is you.
You don't think
it's you.
You don't think
That's
there's
why.
Misinformation?
Yes, there is misinformation, and you are one of the biggest purveyors of it.
How?
That's the issue. That's a great question.
But that is suggesting that I say things that I know are not true.
Okay, no, so maybe
that's misinformation.
Wait, so I can't prove it's not true, but I can tell you this. When you said, looking right into the camera to your audience, and you said about the WikiLeaks dump in 2016, hey, it's illegal for you guys to look at this. You have to just trust us. It's different for the media, so you have to get it from us.
Yeah.
That's totally not true.
What was I referring to?
The WikiLeaks dump.
No, but why was I saying that?
I don't know. It's completely untrue.
Under the Espionage Act, we didn't know at the time what would happen if things were deemed classified and you cached them from online. I had 3 different prosecutors on who said, we don't know how it goes. The only time it's ever been tested is with the media in the Pentagon Papers case. So we knew that the media is given protection on classified documents, even if they're leaked or stolen, but we don't know about the general public. That's what I said. Then WikiLeaks jumped on my head. Okay, that's what I signed up for by being in the media. I then said again, we released all of the things as they came out. All of Podesta's emails went right out. We never censored any of them. So all I was saying is be careful. That we don't have to be as careful because we know that if they come after us for what we do, we'll get protection. I don't know about everybody else.
I'm sure CNN,
but that's the
CNN would get protection. I'm sure Julian Assange won't. Doesn't matter whether you're a journalist or not. It's illegal to leak classified information if you're in the government. It is totally legal for any of you to read it if it gets leaked. And this is just not true. And
well, no, hold on. It is true under, hold on, under, listen, this matters. Do I think you should be able to download it? Of course. It's not even a question. It's easy. Does it get a little weird? Yeah, it gets a little weird because are we encouraging people to steal things and do things? No, I don't think so. But if it happens, I think you should be able to get it. If it's available, you should be able to get it. Is that a little sticky legally? Maybe. The Espionage Act.
No, if it's leaked and it's to the general public, it's no longer classified because it's kind of been declassified in the sense that it's everywhere. And once you put something on the internet, it's everywhere. So there's no way to really get in trouble because once something is on the internet, you have a sense of, oh, this is for public consumption because it's on the internet and has not been taken down. So if I see something on the internet, it's not illegal for me to download it or even cover it.
Act is not that clear about it. That was my concern. It wasn't listen to me and nobody else. Okay, I've never played that game.
That is what you said.
I know, but you are making it mean something.
Well, the thing is
that's why I'm here. I will tell you what I meant.
Even in the Julian Assange case, by the way, if you guys want to look into the details of it, the claim that they're trying to make was that somehow he was involved with Bradley Manning on the actual tape, which is not true at all. But even they won't just say he wasn't allowed to read the classified information once it was leaked.
One of the reasons we kept interviewing Assange is because we didn't know that was true.
So why is it, Chris? When you make these mistakes, they always go in one direction on the behalf of powerful. Like you never seem to make these mistakes where it's just like, oh, by the way, guys, we don't know about this vaccine. That never came out of your mouth.
Listen,
when you were smearing everybody, like me and my family, who wasn't taking it.
For what? Here, again, at the beginning of the pandemic, okay, they came out with this vaccine during the Trump administration to flatten the curve with the most vulnerable people and to stop what was happening in the healthcare system. And everybody remembers this. You can laugh and you can have fun with it because it suits your politics. But there was panic. There were bodies in trailers all over.
You didn't catch that. Somebody said they changed the definition of a vaccine. It's fucking true.
Oh, come on. You're talking about late 2020?
No. I'm talking in the heat of it, when they wanted this vaccine, when Trump was getting all this praise for making it happen, which I believe he deserved. So that's what they wanted to do. The vaccine with the first 2 iterations of the virus absolutely accomplished what they wanted it to.
No, it did, damn it. They said you would never get it. If you got it, you'll never get it again. You're all good. Nothing's going to happen. And then they like, all right, well, you'll get it. But what'll happen is you can get it, but you'll be asymptomatic. Well, you'll get it and you'll have symptoms, but you won't die from it. But you also can't pass it along. Well, you'll get it and you can get sick, and you can also give it to other people, but you won't die from it. like what the fuck, dude?
You can go online. You will not find anything that will tell you otherwise.
That's just not true. I mean, that's just straight up not true.
Go ahead. Let me do something.
Remember what I said, the first iterations of the virus.
Rob, do me a favor. When you're saying with the vaccine, like I think the basic premise is why people are frustrated with this conversation that we're having today. Why don't you play the highlight reel, Rob, the Joker one, if you know which one I'm talking about. Just play this one, and this isn't just you. This is what we have to hear.
That's not me.
No. Every day we have to hear. Play this clip, and then I'm going to go to another one, and I'm going to.
Oh, I know. That's the guy who bankrolled Osama bin Laden's daughter.
Play the clip.
The unvaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem. Period. End of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
You have to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All those vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
You're basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts, running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free, and so forth.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
The unvaccinated, a group that includes children and people acting like children. And the rest of us are starting to get pissed off.
The vaccinated feel the unvaccinated are making me upset or angry.
This is not about freedom. for personal choice.
Well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
The other day, Howard Stern weighed in with a much different approach. Take a look.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, now it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Their freedom.
You're treading on our freedom and you're making other people sick, and really you're killing other people.
The anti-vaxxers, they seem to have a thing for death and home remedies.
The anti-maskers turned anti-vaxxers are not just putting their own lives at risk. If that was the issue, we could just say that we can watch them compete to win place or show in the Darwin Awards.
We have to start doing things for the greater good of society and not for idiots who think that they can do their own research.
And don't get me started on the lunatics who won't take any of the COVID vaccines.
Life is too short to be an ass. Life is way too short to be ignorant of the promise of something that is helping people worldwide.
Maybe you're doing it because you're disconnected or disorganized. Maybe you have some sympathetic psychological reasons. But maybe you're just being antisocial.
Oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
The unvaccinated should be taxed. They should pay more for healthcare.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated.
We're going to see, and I've said, almost two types of America.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack, yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy.
Pointing back to the unvaccinated who are really creating a problem in this country, every death that we are seeing from COVID could have been prevented.
Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. I don't know.
See, that's the frustration. How many guys are frustrated just watching this? Who's getting upset just watching this? Right? So, by the way, I'm a business owner. When we talk about what happened during that time, according to Federal Reserve, the pandemic resulted in permanent closure of roughly 200,000 U.S. establishments shutting down. So this is families running a business for 2-3 generations. Boom, gone. Restaurant business gone. Estimated the economic toll of the COVID-19 pandemic in the U.S. This is according to USC Leonard Schaefer, $14 trillion by the end of 2023. So when we watch this and we're like, oh my God, this is, and I was like, no, everything's changed. 4 years later, it's changed. We should move on. We should think about other things. People still haven't let this go.
Absolutely.
People haven't let this go. And a big
absolutely. That's why I'm here.
Right. No, and I appreciate you doing this. But for me, Dave, what I think is going on is the following. Rob, play that clip with AstraZeneca if you could. If you have that clip, if you know which one I'm talking about. So this is before when they're telling us that there's no risk. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Everything's going to be fine. The before and after of this clip is very, very interesting. Rob, if you got it to pull it up, go and play it. Go watch this clip here.
Now that COVID is back in the news.
So you're hearing people quite nervous.
Raise the volume, Rob.
One of the professors who worked in the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is a paediatrician who is one of the most intelligent, sensible, and honest people I know. And I spoke to him. I was lucky enough to speak to him because I worked in a documentary that looked at the Oxford vaccine. And you know what? There is no conspiracy. There is no fake news.
The AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is being withdrawn worldwide after the pharmaceutical giant admitted it causes a rare and dangerous side effect.
Government had no capacity to enforce any of this. You must wear a mask. And people wore masks in New York. But if they said, I'm not wearing a mask, there was nothing I could do about it.
Masks have been mandatory since April, and a fine for not wearing one took effect this week.
It was really all voluntary. Wear a mask. It is the law, and the law is the law.
People who have got conspiracy, maybe anti-vax views, who believe now that they were deliberately misled over these vaccines. They do it quickly because we sped up the process to make it more efficient. We still had all the safety checks in place. That had not been compromised.
AstraZeneca admits its COVID vaccine.
Show Pfizer. Show Pfizer, by the way. Show what happened with Pfizer stock during this time. I mean, when you look at
come on, you can't defend this shit at all. People aren't dumb. That's why he's like his little claim of, oh well, 20% are going to say they're not going to do that, they're not going to lose. No, that's delusional. Most people have realized that the whole COVID was bullshit. A lot of people are still angry about it. They felt deliberately misled. And I really hope and I really think, but I could be wrong because there's a lot of sheep in the world, that because of COVID, the next time we have a pandemic, and this could be a more serious one next time, no one's going to fucking believe it. And, it's going to be a bit, we're going to be in some real trouble. Okay. No one's going to believe you next time you say, this is horrible. This is terrible. This is bad. Blah, 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 blah. They're not going to believe me. They're going to be like, yeah, fuck you. I remember what happened last time.
Get all this stuff, and you're wondering, who's protected, who's not. This is just Pfizer and Moderna stock during that time. Rob, if you got it, just put it up there for us to see the image. Very profitable season for these guys. I mean, these guys crushed it economically, right? If you, Rob, do you have the image? You don't have the image? I know if Brandon, you can text it to him to show to him. So, Dave, when you see this yourself, either one of you guys can take a lead on this. When you see this here, do you think there's a part of it where there's a community? I call the establishment, you call the establishment, whatever you want to call it. They almost want the season to be gone without there being an accountability on the people that push the stuff to us, whether it's Fauci, whether it's NIH, whether it's CD, whoever you want to put on that. Do you think they quietly want this thing to move on and we focus on other issues that we have?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, clearly they don't actually want to have a reckoning about any of this. And the thing that, for me, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room, it's it makes your blood boil to watch this and kind of relive it and remember that, yeah. And just to think that, right, you just mentioned the stock of big pharma companies and how much money they were making off of it. Look,
this is Pfizer, by the way. Check this out. It's going pretty good for them. Hey, by the way, did that ever come up on CNN?
Yeah.
Did they ever had that that graphic up there?
Yeah.
Did they,
Yeah, because the whole point
right.
was they were making money. They were also given absolute liability against any suits for vaccine injuries.
Yeah.
No. You can't sue for liability for the COVID vaccines. That's complete and utter bullshit. Stop lying.
And,
pretty corrupt.
And it was a very weird combination of things we had never seen before. And the company said, we won't make it under Operation Warp Speed's guidelines unless you insulate us from litigation for this process.
Oh.
And the government said, okay, we need it.
And yet you guys spent every day, all day long, demonizing American people who were skeptical about this, demonizing the people rather than demonizing the powerful.
So
listen, hold on, let me just say for a second. 2020 was the largest transfer of wealth in human history. And it was from the working and middle class in America to the millionaires and billionaire class. That you can go look up the data on that. They got richer than ever before.
So you think that's what the vaccine was about?
No, my point is that that went completely uncovered by the corporate press. And instead, they were just trying their best because the whole thing was, it was an election year and you guys, the Russiagate thing had failed. And so this was the new attempt now to ruin Donald Trump and make sure he didn't get reelected. And everything was framed through that lens.
To hurt Trump? He gave us the vaccine.
Okay, first of all, when you're talking about different things here. Praising the vaccine did not come in until Trump was gone and Joe Biden was in, okay? If anybody remembers at the time, as of the presidential debates, Kamala Harris said, I'll never take that vaccine if that's a Trump vaccine. And you and nobody else at CNN vilified her for saying that. No, they didn't.
Yes, they
it was
did.
not until the following year in 2021 when the vaccines were rolled out. Yes, it is true. Chris, you can keep interrupting me.
You want
Chris,
it to be true, but it's not true.
Chris, could you play me a montage like that of people demonizing Kamala Harris for not taking the vaccine when she said that? No, you couldn't. Okay, so I'm right.
Oh,
anyway,
that's the standard?
Yeah.
Yes, evidence. Proof, not you just saying no, that's not true. Like if you like, can you do a montage of people demonizing? Now, obviously, maybe there were some people demonizing her for it, but let's be honest, it wasn't most people. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the general, not the exceptions to the rule.
That's the standard.
So you just showed a montage or whatever, Gravian's montage. And by the way, there are plenty more people on Fox News who were saying the same thing. You have Cavuto in there. I'll give you credit for
the record. Fox News was terrible on this as well.
But what's the point? The point is, so everyone was in on it?
No, just the corporate media and the government.
So
no, not everybody.
So all these people who get paid by contrast, right? These companies get paid by contrast, meaning they are looking for ways to be different than the other ones. But they just all wound up saying the same thing, which was just completely untrue.
Yeah, okay. So again, to take on what you just said, no, not everyone, and not everyone who gets paid. Joe Rogan is bigger than every single show at CNN combined and gets paid more than every single person at CNN combined. And he was 100% right about this thing through the entire time. Listen, yes, hold on. Okay. Hold on, let me get this point out.
Tell me what he was right about.
Okay, how about, you know what you just revealed last month on Pat's show about ivermectin? Yeah. Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that. Yeah. You literally said he's taking horse dewormer. He should be ashamed of himself. You pleaded with your audience to not take it. Then you come back around and you go, hey, Pat, you know what I just found out? Turns out this thing isn't for animals. Turns out humans are. But Chris, a 5-minute Google search and you would have known that.
First of all,
how do you not apologize to Joe Rogan?
Listen, do you know who disagrees with you? Do you know who disagrees with you? The people who make ivermectin disagree with you.
Okay, hold on. What do they disagree with me about?
That the drug should not be taken as a standalone for COVID-19.
I never said it should.
That's what Rogan was saying.
No. He did not. No, listen. See, this is the thing, Chris. That is a lie. That is a blatant lie. Joe Rogan. So you just pretended that I said it's a standalone for COVID. No. Here's what it always was. Here's what Joe Rogan said. My doctor prescribed it to me, along with several other medications, just like your doctor prescribed it to you. That's what he said. What I'm saying is that it's not horse dewormer, as you and everybody else at CNN mindlessly repeated. Now, what he said, no, let me finish. What he said, and what I'm saying is that it is a medicine that's been prescribed to people millions and I think billions of times. And it was totally demonized. Why? You already said why. You said it 2 years too late, but you already said why.
Here's why.
No one owned it.
Here's why. What Pat has on his desk right now, you do not want to take, okay? It is the veterinary grade ivermectin. People were so desperate to get it because they were told it was a panacea. It was a cure-all.
Who told them that?
It was online.
Well, you just claimed Joe Rogan said it. You claimed I said it. Neither of us have said that.
But so hold on. So why was there a rush on ivermectin all of a sudden?
Can I tell you my honest opinion about that? Okay, it's that the medical establishment and the corporate media so humiliated themselves that they lost trust with the entire American people. And then, there were some charlatans online who were saying, "Oh, go take this," and they trusted them.
Please, here's what happened.
Okay? If you think Joe Rogan said, "Take any form of ivermectin you can get, and you'll never get COVID,"
I'm not blaming Rogan. Here's what happened.
You should be apologizing.
And again, listen.
Don't just use the internet, unleash it. Quantum Fiber Internet sets you free.
Listen, here's what happened. Here's what happened. Also, let me tell you why I think apologies in this context are a stunt, okay? We don't accept apologies. Nobody accepts apologies except as an admission.
Now, he's right here. We don't accept apologies. We normally demonize them because most of the time they're not genuine. They're not genuine apologies.
That you
He's right here.
That's why Trump never apologizes. He's right. Because if you apologize, Guys, everybody just beat you over the head.
Trump's got a lot to apologize for, and so do you.
I'm just saying,
You both
as a
should.
concept, and you should too on this, and I'll tell you
What
why.
should I apologize
Here's
for?
what happened. Ivermectin, it wasn't because the media said don't take it, so everyone took it. The media would have never been talking about it unless people were taking it. Use your head. So here's what happens. They're prescribing it like crazy. They actually stop physicians from being able to prescribe it, which I think was a mistake. They then start giving out veterinary grade ivermectin, which, as the word would suggest, you shouldn't take, right?
Doctors were prescribing
because no,
veterinary?
people were desperately trying to get it online. They couldn't find it. Okay. Ivermectin is the most studied potential treatment for COVID of all of them, which was a complete waste of money. And it was all done just to play on the politics of this. Merck, that made ivermectin, put out a statement during this saying, we do not advise it to be used for COVID-19. You can't find research that is seen as impressive by the research community that proves that ivermectin is effective in treating COVID-19. Rob can find you 100 studies, right? Listen, you're wrong on this.
No, I'm not.
And I'll tell you why. Because they're mad at me too, by the way. You think you guys are alone?
So, but
No.
why- but why are you taking it
Here's
then?
why. My doctor, I didn't take it during COVID-19. And I didn't take hydroxychloroquine when I was sick with COVID-19, even though a lot of people thought they would be nice by sending it to me. Why? Because the research isn't there. That's why. With long COVID, okay? Not long vax, that's a different thing. If it's going to get recognized as such. I don't know. They won't say that yet. Long COVID, they're now saying exists. There is research. Is it dispositive? No. Do the people on the government levels and the research communities like that I said that I'm taking it? No. Do they think I'm setting myself up for lawsuits? Yes. But my doctor, I believe, is in the vanguard of people who are figuring out long COVID. And she has a lot of the same problems, by the way, with me and with the pandemic that you do. And she has found research and she's had her own experience in using it in a combination with many other things where she believes it may be able to help. Now, I've been taking it. I don't feel any better. Does that mean it doesn't work? No. But
it's
that's
safe.
why I'm
It's
taking
safe and it's not
It is
horse-based.
definitely
So what is
safe,
it-
but it's not
what-
horse-based because it's not
Right,
horse-based.
right. But
that
that
is
is
horse-based.
By the way, no one ever at CNN during this time, when they were all saying it's horse dewormer, everyone was repeating, no one ever said, we're talking about the veterinarian ivermectin.
That's
We're
because-
not talking about the ivermectin that doctors prescribe. No one ever said that. But listen, you told me I should apologize. So what do you think I should apologize for? And then I'll tell you what I think you should apologize for.
I know what you think I should apologize for. Obviously, there was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like
You did it.
No.
Yes, you did.
Find the clips.
Dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
you
clips.
said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it. I'll go find
first
the
of all,
clip.
you just saw the clips.
I'll watch
I'm
it.
not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
No, the
here's
clip
the
I'm talking about wasn't on there. And
Here's
it's
the
absolutely
clip.
there. Oh, here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
This is the clip I saw. This was the clip I saw, and it's just funny. Show me the clips.
For animals and horse.
And people telling them to. What person? You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's what it is.
They're shaming themselves. So you're taking a dewormer right now.
This
Chris,
is
you
a
can't
dewormer.
apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this,
All
and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now.
I'm
man.
not
You
being
were talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on.
I was responding to a situation where we were told that this is what people were searching out to take, and nobody knew what it was going to do. Look, I'm taking the drug right now. Obviously, I don't think it's all poison. I stopped calling it the horse drug when, and you cannot like it, CNN's chief medical officer, who is Sanjay Gupta, said to me, you shouldn't just call it a horse dewormer. There's a whole legitimate aspect of the drug. I wouldn't use it for COVID.
Did you go on CNN and say, hey, I just got this new information. I was wrong. I was calling it a horse dewormer. It's not all horse dewormer. There's a veterinary grade. There's a pharmaceutical grade. Did you go on that? Because, look, people don't take disingenuous apologies. But when you admit you're wrong and give correct information, people look, I still don't like you, but I respect that you came on and said, hey, I was wrong about X thing. Here's the correct information on X thing. People will respect that, but you didn't do that.
COVID-19, but it's not just a veterinary grade. So I stopped calling it that.
So, okay.
And then it went away.
By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this. One of the best moments during the pandemic was when Dr. Gupta, who was just mentioned, went on Joe Rogan's podcast. For all the days of CNN demonizing Joe Rogan, they send their top doctor out there onto his show, and he goes, why is everyone on your network saying I'm taking horse dewormer? Ivermectin's not. And Dr. Gupta looked down at his lap and went, yeah, no, they shouldn't be saying that.
Well,
and then there was a better,
Sanjay was the one who corrected us.
No, actually, after that, he went back and laughed as Don Lemon called it horse dewormer again, and then I guess later corrected you guys. But then there was a moment. This was the best moment. You got to remember the context of this. This was during the vaccine passports. Okay, the point when the people like me, and I'm sure a lot of you, were basically turned into second-class citizens, weren't allowed to go into restaurants, weren't allowed to go to sporting events, weren't allowed to go into a lot of different office buildings, things like that. And you, personally, along with everyone at CNN, cheered that on. You mused and joked around when you were interviewing Dr. Fauci about what rights the unvaccinated should have. So Dr. Gupta goes to Joe Rogan and says, it is in the middle of all this. He goes, so you're going to get the vaccine? And Joe goes, no, I just had COVID. Why would I get it? I got natural immunity. It's stronger than the vaccine. And Dr. Gupta went, yeah, that's a good point.
They show that clip. It's fucking ads.
He had nothing for him. He had no response.
It's not. It's
just like when you were. Listen,
that's not even close to accurate.
Okay? Yeah. Well, remember last time we played the clip and I was right?
You weren't right about that either. You weren't right about that
Chris,
either.
dude, you're in denial here, man. It's so clear that you said that. Just admit it, man, and we can move on.
Again, here's the main difference. You may not say it this way, but this is what I think you're suggesting. You believe that you were demonized for not taking the vaccine, and that was wrong because it was right to not take the vaccine.
Okay, no. I don't. First of all, I don't believe I was demonized for taking the vaccine. We just played video proof of it. Me, and it's not me. It's me and tens of millions of Americans were demonized to take the vaccine. Now, when you say it was wrong because you weren't supposed to take the vaccine, I think, and this is summing up a lot in a short period of time, I think there was a strong argument in the initial wave of COVID. If you were old and sick and had never had COVID, it might have been a good idea.
What if you lived with someone who was old and sick?
That probably wouldn't have done anything. Literally, it's not going to stop.
What you're talking about. No, I do know what the science is obvious on this. The first, look, again,
Chris, you got a lot of nerve not apologizing and then telling me I don't know what I'm talking about.
What do you want me to apologize for? For telling people to take the vaccine?
Okay, let's just stick with Joe Rogan. For mocking and smearing a person from the #1 show at CNN and then years later admitting he was completely right about what he said. How is that not attached to an apology? If I ever smeared someone aggressively and then 2 years later I had to admit that, I come out and just say what you said to Pat on his podcast was exactly what Joe Rogan was saying this whole time. You go, first of all, it's not horse dewormer, it's used on people, it's very safe, and my doctor prescribed it to me. That's why I'm taking it. Yes, if I ever did that to someone, I would apologize for that.
But it's not the right context. And it's first of all, it's both, right? It's veterinary grade and human grade. I was not making a market.
Which one do you think Rogan was taking?
I hope he was taking the human grade if he was prescribed it.
Which one do you think Joe Rogan, who just signed his second $200 million deal, was taking? Do you think he was stealing it out of the cat bowl, or do you think he had a doctor?
I'm sure they prescribed it.
So then you guys were all wrong for demonizing him.
I think that it was wrong. Look, you guys want simple answers. You guys want simple answers to this, and it's not simple.
No, it's very simple. You're just disingenuous. You realizing that, I really fucked up on this. All right. But instead of saying, I was wrong, I was incorrect in this, this was my bad, I was part of that, you're trying to be all clever, like, oh, I was only talking about the veterinarian grade stuff. Look, buddy, we're not believing you. We believe 100% that what you were demonizing her for was what you were demonizing him with, and trying to imply that he was taking a horse dewormer, which is why he kept saying it. And that's also why when you were told by Sanjay Gupta that, hey, by the way, it's not just a horse dewormer, there's pharmaceutical grade. Did you go on your show and say, hey, look, I was wrong about this. We talked about this a little while ago. I was wrong. I called it a horse dewormer. It's not a horse dewormer. There is a pharmacy grade thing of it that you can get prescribed by your doctor, and that's what I believe Joe Rogan is taking. So I was incorrect in this. So if you're looking for ivermectin, make sure you get the one that's prescribed by the doctors and not the veterinarian grade one, which is also the same name.
This is simple. This one is simple.
It's not simple.
The vaccine question might be more difficult. This is really simple, man.
The maker of the drug. You want me to apologize when the maker of the drug says don't use it for COVID, when all of the research says it is not effective for COVID?
Well, okay, first of all,
I should say Joe Rogan was right to say take it.
You're on it. What are we even arguing about here? You're on the drug.
Long COVID is different. Long COVID is different.
So first of all, just to be clear, and this is essentially the truth, right? There were some studies that seemed to indicate that if you take ivermectin early in a COVID infection, there seemed to be some positive benefits. Then there were other studies that basically said, no, we're not seeing that. Now, I've heard a lot of experts, and this goes beyond my pay grade, argue that those other studies weren't properly done. Whatever it is, the reason why doctors were prescribing it to people like Joe Rogan and millions of other Americans was they were like, look, it's a mixed bag with the study. Some of them seem to indicate it might help. Some indicate it doesn't. But we know the drug. It's a people drug, and it's safe. So why not take this in your regimen along with a bunch of other things? That's the point. And
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Okay,
that's why they were prescribing it. I don't think they were prescribing it to be reckless.
No,
I think that's why they're prescribing it. But here's the problem with what you guys want. Okay, it is not some research says take it, some research says don't. Okay, it's just not that way. All right, and it's not even close. I'm telling you, I have not spoken with anyone in preparation for coming here tonight who said you can say ivermectin works with COVID. That is my doctor does believe it can be effective. She is cool. Her name is Dr. Robin Rose.
See, he's like, I've never spoken to anyone except your doctor who said that you can take it.
If you have long COVID or someone you know has long COVID, look up Terrain Health, Robin Rose. She's doing her best. But the point remains the same.
Floor Coverings International comes to you with one local team. They're not happy until.
What did he say? Say it again. I didn't hear it.
Is she a veterinarian?
Oh, that's funny.
That is funny, though.
That is funny.
Let me say something on this, and then we can move on. You said something, and I think to me, you know how we talk off camera, and we have some great conversations together. And, just listening to you guys right now, I want to sit on the sideline and just listen to you guys speak. My job is to just go to the next door and let you guys talk. I have such an easy job today because my wife and I, right after this, we're going to spend the weekend together because on our anniversary, it's June 26th, which is our daughter's birthday. If we don't do it this weekend, we can't do it then. So I got to go see her in the next couple hours. She's sitting out here. My 12-year-old son is over there. My Tico boy. Tico, can you stand up, buddy? Stand up real quick. Stand up so they can see you. Can you stand up, buddy? Tico. It's my son right there. So funny. He says, Dylan says, who said? He says, Daddy, if something happens to you, Tico can run PVD podcast because he's also PVD, right? And my pop's also over here. But, I'm listening to one thing. If you know my dad, he's the greatest man I've ever met in my life. But, when I'm listening to you, Chris, all I caught was one thing. I've heard everything.
All that? You only caught one
trust
thing?
Me, it's just one thing. No, I'm telling you. By the way, you have to understand, it's only one thing I caught about this whole thing. What you want, you're not going to get. You said something. You said, in this world, if you apologize, they will never let it go, and they'll always come back. Look at Trump. He never apologizes. So what that makes me think about, you either are following Trump's lead, then you agree with what Trump does is right, so you want to be like Trump, to say, I want to, and I'm just, I'm telling you this as a brother, you're like, hey, that's what Trump said. Or on the other side, you're like, man, say if I go the other side and I say I messed up, then these guys are going to come after me for the rest of my life. If you go back and look at data on what happened with Joe, when all the Planet of the Apes stuff that he came out, I don't know if you remember that when he came out with Spotify, Daniel Ek defended him. He came out and he made a video. I don't know where the video was by his cold. It was somewhere outside. He's just making a video and talking openly. And it's like, we shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have done this. You know what the world said? You know what? Freaking A. Good for this guy for apologizing. Are you kidding me? You're
talking about the stuff in his comedy act?
Yeah.
And the racist stuff.
Well, I mean, all the stuff that they put together saying, I listened to some of the stuff.
But that's what they made him apologize for.
Well, it's not about that's what they made him apologize for.
No one made him. He apologized for it.
But the point
you don't think that the money he was getting from that company came with them having leverage over what he apologized for?
Nope. I happen to know about this, and he's a good friend of mine. Joe Rogan is the boss of bosses. He could have done whatever he wanted to. Okay. And he apologized because he felt bad about it. Yeah, that's the truth.
So then if what you say.
Exactly. So that's the point. Like, people accept apologies that they feel it's genuine. Okay, if you're saying I'm sorry because you just got a bunch of backlash, you don't actually feel sorry, but you think, hey, this is the best way to get people off my back, I'm going to apologize for it. That's what people don't believe. But if, Chris Cuomo came out and was like, look, I just learned about this. I was wrong. Or when Sanjay Gupta told him about it, it was like, hey, look, CNN viewers, I was wrong. I made fun of Joe Rogan for taking ivermectin. Turns out ivermectin's also a people drug that can be prescribed by his doctor. I think that's what he was talking about. I don't think he was taking, the veterinarian grade ivermectin or anything like that. It's not just a horse dewormer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was incorrect in my belief, so I want to apologize for providing incorrect information. Ivermectin there's two different kinds. There's the people drug and there's the veterinarian grade stuff. That's the veterinarian grade stuff's the dewormer. So if you want to get ivermectin and stuff, make sure you consult your doctor and get it prescribed by your doctor. Don't go and get the veterinarian grade stuff. If you had done that, people probably would have given you, more than likely, not even probably, it definitely would have been like, you know what? Don't like Chris Cuomo, but I can respect him for, admitting he was incorrect in something and came out and recorrected the record. That's the problem with these media types is they say something, turns out to be false, and most of the time they don't correct it and say, hey, my bad, I messed up here.
What you just said right now, you're saying the bosses made him do that. Then the argument goes with you to say the bosses made you defend the vaccine and go up against the ivermectin because the boss is paying you, made you do that, and you didn't do that. Is that correct?
No. The bosses never made. I wish I could give you guys the defense. CNN made me do it.
Right
like Tucker says about the war.
It's not right on the CNN side.
There's no
parallel. By the way, can I just say what Tucker says about supporting the Iraq war is I was wrong and I'm so sorry for doing that. Yeah. That's what he said.
I know, but no, that's not what he said. He says Fox confused me and duped me into believing.
I literally just had a conversation with the man face to face a couple weeks ago about this. He said, "I'm so ashamed of it."
I know. He definitely says that. He definitely says.
So it's not. And by the way, he was the #1 guy in cable news till he left, and now he's one of the #1 guys on the internet.
I totally get it.
You can apologize.
It's not about not apologizing. I apologize all the time. What I'm saying is the reason you're asking for it here is just as a simple gotcha. Trump is right that if you apologize in this dynamic, that's all they want.
Let me just save everybody time so we can go to the next 4 topics. Is there anything you regret when you did during that time?
Yes. So here's what I would have done different. One, I would have never been on TV, even though it's the thing I get thanked for most in 25 years of doing this. I would not have been on TV when I was sick. It extended the illness. I think it may have been why I wound up having these extended symptoms because I didn't let myself beat the fever. I should have done that. Okay. 2, I wish that I knew then what I know now about watching what was happening in the country with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th iterations of the virus because things changed. Now I'll give myself a little bit of a defense in that I wasn't on TV for a year of this, but I was there when it started to change. We saw breakthrough infections. And what that meant was there was an opportunity for me to say, wait a minute, I thought there wasn't supposed to be any infections. And there was a messaging mistake that I didn't know better than to say, but now I do. What Rachel Maddow has that gotcha clip on her all the time where she says, you get this and you don't get COVID, you'll never get COVID. That was never true, but that is what we were told. And even the scientists who were working in Operation Warp Speed had confusion about this. The vaccine always worked the same way, which was you don't get enough of viral buildup to get very sick or die. And they assumed, and it was this way in the beginning, that because you don't get a lot of virus, unless you're a super spreader, you won't be as contagious for other people. But that changed. And I wish that during that change, I had seen it for what it was and said, wait a minute, you got to change the mandates. You got to change how you see the booster, and you got to change how you message this. Because there was a lot of drama and pain that happened in those later iterations and a lot of loss.
Chris, anything to apologize for. Apologize. Anything to apologize for. So Chris, hang on, let me just say, open-ended, anything to apologize for. Anything.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and.
Now, I agree with Cuomo here. You do it in this type of forum. It's just a gotcha. It's all that. It's just gonna be bashed on your head. All that stuff. So I understand his strong stance of like, no, I'm not gonna apologize for it. If I was on the stage, I'd be like, look, yeah, no, I understand. Don't apologize here on the forum. It's just a gotcha. I completely agree with you here. But here's the thing. You never came back and said, hey, I was wrong about X. I was wrong about this, unless he did it on PBD, but he never said that. So I'm assuming he didn't do it when he was getting interviewed by PBD and revealed he was using ivermectin. He never said it during this, his time at CNN. Say, hey, when Sanjay Gupta told me this, hey, by the way, what I just said, there's none of that. So that's what I would bash him over the head with when it came to this. I wouldn't be asking for apology here. I agree with Cuomo here that, hey, if I do it here, it's just a gotcha. It's not going to sound genuine or anything like that. And people are just going to say, I only apologize because I was confronted, and felt like, and it's not a genuine apology and stuff. I totally agree. But I would have bashed them, they should have bashed him over heads like, but then why didn't you apologize when you did get the new information? Once you got the new information and was like, hey, I was wrong about this, why didn't you go on and say, hey, look, I was wrong about this. Here's what I said. Here's the correct information. I'm sorry for giving you guys the wrong information. I didn't know at the time, but that's still my bad. People give you a lot of slack.
I did not do anything on purpose that I thought was wrong.
See? So whether it was or not, whether it was or not, listen, sometimes in life, you're married, I'm married, I've been married 14 years.
I apologize all the time.
That's the point. But sometimes we do stuff, whether it's intentional or not, sometimes we do things. And we say, listen,
that's because I want the other person to be okay.
And there's millions of people that listen to
I know,
this.
but here's the problem. You're the minority. There are a lot more people who, if I were to say, which I do not believe, okay, that I should have never said that people should take this vaccine early on. I should have never said that. I should have never said that when people change their position, you said there was no change until everybody loved the vaccine with Biden. No. Early on with Operation Warp Speed, I lived it. I watched the process. Everyone was celebrating that Trump got this done. All the Republicans were celebrating it. That's why Kamala Harris said what she said. She was playing stupid, petty politics and saying, I won't take any vaccine that's Donald Trump. That was stupid for her to say it. Then it switched. And the same people, the clip you have with me and Byron Donalds, who I respect as a lawmaker, I love having him on the show. I like to hear his name in the conversation about being VP. He went from, vaccine is great, amazing that Trump did this. I got it, my wife got it, this is awesome. To all of a sudden, I don't know about this vaccine. All that changed was that Biden came in. That's what I was attacking so vehemently. I make no apologies for that. If you're this hung up on the ivermectin thing, here's my problem with it. I don't like that Joe Rogan got beat up for taking it. I don't think anybody was in the right to say ivermectin was something you should be taking instead of the vaccine, or if you have it. We don't know that that's true. Even the maker of it says it. So do I like that Joe Rogan got beaten up? No, I don't like it. And to the extent
that you beat him up, but you're saying it like someone else did it, but you.
But here's the thing, okay?
I mean, you didn't beat him up. You don't want to fist fight Joe Rogan.
Here's the thing. Listen. I like what Joe Rogan does. I respect his success. I'm certainly not afraid of him. Okay. What I'm saying is,
that's a load of horse shit. You're totally afraid of Joe Rogan. Stop that. Stop that.
That's his choice.
Go on his show and argue with him in person. You're not afraid of Joe Rogan. But
choice is to say this. I don't like that he was demonized. But for me to say, hey, you know what? Nobody should have come after him for putting it out there that ivermectin was what he was taking and that's what you should do, because the research doesn't support it. So
how about apologize and say, hey, I was wrong to call it a horse dewormer. I was incorrect in this. And at the time, I should have came out and said, once I learned that it wasn't actually just a horse dewormer, I should have came out and said something about it. But you didn't. You just stopped calling it a horse dewormer.
Not right for me to say that. Listen, the research that supports the shot is a two-part answer. That emergency use authorization, they need to go back and review why it got it. And they're never going to do it right now, to a bit of what Pat was saying. Right now, here's what you have. Blame versus silence. You guys are the blame side. I want apologies. I want a reckoning.
No,
I want
honestly,
this. I want that.
I don't take it that
Listen,
way.
but this is why they won't talk about it.
Bubba,
I'm telling you why they won't talk about it.
Hear me out. I'm telling you, this is my dad told me something one time. He says, listen, be very careful when everybody says good things about you, because one thing in America is they'll turn you into hero overnight and they'll turn you into zero overnight.
Yes.
Then he said the following. He said, but this is the great thing about America. What America loves more than anything else is a redemption story. They want to see you make a comeback. They want to see you go from here you are, fall, they kick your ass, then you're like, I effed up. You know what? This is America. Most of us are Christians. Come back. We believe in forgiveness. And then you can make some kind of a comeback that may take a few months and a couple years. But then they're like, okay, what? We all make mistakes. Pat, that's the opportunity.
Pat, I don't see that opportunity. Here's what I see.
I understand you don't. But
I got to tell you, here's why. Because you believe that the way you see it is the only way to see it. And that's not the way it is.
But I disagree. No, I disagree. And let me tell you why.
Tell me.
You said, out of everything, we've been going for an hour and 25 minutes. Out of everything that's been said for an hour and 25 minutes, you said, I'm so sorry.
That's going down.
No, I am so sorry. You said, out of an hour and 25 minutes, you said, I think Trump's right for not apologizing.
As a tactic.
And you're using his tactic. You're using his tactic.
I did not do anything that warrants an apology.
You said,
can we go over some more?
Guys, we're moving on. We're not staying on this thing. The only thing I'm saying is the following. You know when you're sitting here saying, you know, they can't say this and the ivermectin this and they didn't have the research and they didn't have the research. Dude, we have 9 months on COVID and everybody's talking about taking it and we're being forced to take all this other stuff. We didn't have any research on this thing. Warp speed, the whole levels to be able to go, yeah, go ahead and take it, guys. If you don't, shame this. So that's a mistake, bro. That's a mistake. And then at the same time, like if you screwed up, boom, let's move on and go. At this point, I know it's not going to happen. So I want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors. Can you please have a guy named Tucker, who's our sponsor here? He's got a couple of words to say. Go ahead.
Since I was doing the same thing. I wasn't working on a construction site when I was 25. I was in the political media in Washington. And I stayed there from 1991 to 2020. So I look back at myself and I'm like, I can't believe, for example, I supported the war in Iraq. Why did I do that? Now, I think to my credit, I went to Iraq in 2003 and realized I'd been completely wrong. And I said so. I didn't continue to lie. But I did go along with things I was uncomfortable with. I didn't ask difficult enough questions. And I wound up supporting something that was really bad for the United States and evil, in my opinion. So why did I do that? Part of it was I was young and stupid. Part of it was, I think, if I'm being honest, this was not conscious, but it's still true. I felt vulnerable. You know, I had at the time 3 kids. I've got a mortgage. Like, do you really want to pick a fight with everybody when you're 31 and you're just trying to like pay tuition and keep your shit together? Maybe you don't. And I think it's an age thing to a certain extent. Like at a certain age, whatever it is, if you're in the same business and you feel like you've sort of done what you set out to do, you're like, I don't really need to impress anybody at this point. I'm not, in debt. Speaking for myself, I'm not rich. I will never be rich. I'm pretty sure of that. But I'm not in hock to anybody. I don't owe anybody anything. And my kids are grown. So it's like, why would I ever lie? I'm just in a different place. And so
Okay. So, by the way,
he's admitted like I was incorrect, and he's gave some excuse and stuff, but he's like, no, I regret doing this. I'm really sad I did this. There's nothing wrong with that. No one's beating Tucker over that. If Chris Cuomo, I agree, he shouldn't be doing this on this podcast because it's gonna feel disingenuous, no matter how he does it. But if at the time, or even prior to coming on here, or even when he admitted to PPD that, hey, I'm taking ivermectin, because my doctor prescribed it. I was completely wrong when I, demonized Joe Rogan about it. People saw that. People were like, all right, cool, all right. He admitted he was wrong, at least wrong until you apologize for it. Like it. He's like, I don't have anything to apologize for. Is basically what he's saying. He's like, you do have a lot to apologize for because you pushed it, and there's nothing wrong with saying like, look, I'm sorry. I was given the wrong information. I believed it to be true, and it turned out I was wrong. And I apologize for pushing a bunch of incorrect things and not making, blah, 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 blah. Like people don't like disingenuous apologies, but they do like being someone, admitting they were wrong and taking accountability for something they did wrong.
If you read into what he said, I played along because I didn't want to go up against everybody, right? Because I needed to make money, because I had to support my family, because I had to. And this is a guy that his show flopped on MSNBC. They were not watching it. I think he was before Maddow, whatever the show, the timing was that they had to move on and come back and make a resurgence, and boom, goes and becomes number 1, 3.3 million viewers on a nightly basis, does well for himself, makes his money, and now you know where he's at right. You know what he's got? You know what he's got right now? Oh, let me tell you what he's got right now. He's got this thing. This is the only thing in there that he kind of went like this a little bit too quickly. He's got this thing called FU money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think he's had it all the time.
And Joe has this thing also called the FU money. And it's funny that both of them have to kind of go through the process of that to have the FU money. And I think it's a great example for us to do that. Now I want to transition to other stories, but here's what I do want to do. If you're watching this, the way you get to vote for today's debate so far, because we got a bunch of other issues we got to talk about right now with Trump, convicted felon, migration, dual citizenship. I'm not done. We're just getting started right now. You get to vote by sending a Manect to Dave Smith and to Chris Cuomo. If you can put their Manect up, ask him any questions, anything you agree with, disagree with, papers, articles, whatever it is. This is the way to get connected with them. They're both on Manect, and they actually get back to people very quickly. I actually think Chris is top 3 fastest to get back to people on Manect, and I think out of everybody, he's got 100% 5-star except for one. and Dave Smith gets back to people quick as
By the
well.
way, you gave me a 0, you bastard.
All right, let's go to the next. We're not getting the apology tonight, folks. So afterwards, we'll get our part. It's all good. All right, let's go to the next thing. Unless you phone a last chance to apologize. If you don't, we can skip this thing. All right, let's go to the next story. You gave me the look that he doesn't want to do it. All right, Tucker. I'm sorry. Trump, a convicted felon. Reaction to it yesterday. Let me just read some of the stuff. 34 counts. We know it. Up to 136 years he can go to jail. The $130,000 payment to the adult film actress Stormy Daniels, et cetera, et cetera. When you saw that, Dave, your reaction to it?
Well, I mean, look, and I know this is like a disclaimer, but it is just the truth because just so you guys know where I'm coming from. I am not a Trump supporter. And a lot of my audience wishes I was. I've been a sharp critic of Donald Trump through his entire administration, not for the reasons that the corporate press is a critic of Donald Trump, for different reasons. But look, this is just so obvious. I mean, for anybody who's being honest with themselves, look at this. This is a maybe misdemeanor. That it's a glorified misdemeanor that they've turned into 34 felonies. It is totally appalling. This is a result of the justice system being weaponized, and they had this in New York where they know. I mean, getting a jury to convict Donald Trump in New York is pretty easy. People hate his guts there, and it's a major moment in the history of the United States of America. You know, one of the things that I hear a lot of Trump critics will say, which to me is the most. You ever hear the red pill, blue pill analogy? Like, in the Matrix, you have the red pill or the blue pill. It's the most blue pill thing I've ever heard, where they go, no president is above the law. They go, except all of them are. You know what I mean? Like, all previous presidents are above the law. And there's been major crimes committed by presidents throughout the entire history of the United States of America. I mean, obviously, people know that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney instituted torture. Barack Obama had American citizens drone bombed without charges pressed against them. I mean, there's all types of things that you could prosecute former presidents for. And there's all types of war crimes that you could prosecute Donald Trump for. But they don't go after him for that, because then their next guy would be open to being prosecuted for war crimes. So they're going after him for every little thing that they can get. It's look, the United States of America, our government has done some bad things in our past. We've lied the American people into wars many times. World War I, Vietnam, Iraq. This is something different. We've never done this before. We've never weaponized the justice system against a former sitting president of the United States who, by the way, was framed for treason by his intelligence agencies while he was president. And now they're weaponizing the Justice Department against him while he is the overwhelming front runner to win the next election. It's a truly wild time to be alive.
Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Michael, founder of MicroStrategy.
Why couldn't you have done this on Rumble, PBD?
I'm excited.
The reason they don't go after presidents is because of presidential immunity, which they're litigating right now. So the idea of you make more decisions and this and that sounds great. Let's get them. It's not how the law works. It's never worked that way. That's why you haven't seen it. I agree with your analysis of this case. I've never liked it. I don't like that Bragg jumped the line because I think that he wound up ruining what was a legitimate legal look at what happened in Georgia, which now I don't know that it's going to happen because of the immunity argument.
Oops, sorry.
I think it will lose. This was a misdemeanor that was trumped up to felonies. To call it 34 counts is laughable because the 34 counts are different checks that were signed to pay back home. This district attorney has no problem knocking down significant felonies to misdemeanors. He did it 70% of the time. Now, the people of New York City can judge him, and if they like the policy, if they like it, he made an argument why he was going to do that. But the same guy who does that then did this to Trump. He campaigned on going after Trump. And you don't make this case against anybody else. And the same thing goes for the attorney general in New York. And yes, she went after my brother, so maybe I'm just saying it because she did that. I'm not, but have at it. You don't bring the case of 2 sets of books that you brought against Trump. Did he have 2 sets of books? Yes. Did he have Michael Cohen pay off these ladies and try to hide it? Yes, he did it. Should it have been prosecuted as a felony? Absolutely not. Does it embolden his case that everything that happens in America is corrupt? Yes, and I think that's a big tragedy. So what does this mean to him? My analysis of it is this. The only way it hurts him is if in specific states, people who are called persuadables right now, which is really not fair because what they really are is, in my interviews with these populations, I don't know which one of these is more frightening to me. So I don't know yet. That's not really a persuadable. A real persuadable is, I like what Dave is saying, but not 100%. If Cuomo could help me a little bit more on these issues, I may go for him. That's a persuadable. This is just people who are just so disgusted. They don't know which way to go. This may move the needle in states with that population in a way that could hurt Trump. But I think he's...
Yeah, it's helping Trump. There's a lot. There's ever since he got convicted, he's raised $35 million. And yeah, this is just helping Trump. His poll numbers have jumped. This isn't hurting Trump at all.
He's going to raise a lot of money off it. He already has. And I think it was a case that should not have been brought, and it was brought for the wrong reasons.
All right, just a couple things on that real quick, because I don't agree that it's presidential immunity that's the reason why previous presidents haven't been gone after. I mean, look, when Barack Obama was first elected, remember, this is not Barack Obama the president, or it's the very beginning, but this is Barack Obama the candidate in 2008 who was talking about ending wars, and closing Gitmo, and reinstituting habeas corpus, and all these type of things. Right. And there was a lot of pressure on him from his left-wing supporters to prosecute George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and other top members of that cabinet for war crimes that had clearly been committed. And Barack Obama gave a speech about it. And he said in it, he conceded. He goes, "Yes, we tortured some folks." That's good. He just said it, and he goes, "But now is the time to look forward, not backward." Which is a weird thing about prosecuting crime. typically you have to look backwards in order to do it. But my point is just that, the way things really work in the real world is that at the highest levels of power, there's no such thing as law.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, he's true. I hear it. But no, the ways things have worked in our country for years and years and years and years since the former of our conversation is a handshake. All right, look, unless you do something really egregious to the point of getting impeached, we're not going to go after you. We're going to leave you alone. All right. If you know, unless you get impeached, we're just going to leave you alone. All right. You'll have to do something really egregious for us to go after, or we'd have to get a lot of popularity and shit like that. Where but even then, the Trump prosecution is not popular at all. But no, what really has happened, what really has gone on with our country is everything's been a handshake. Like, look, we're gonna give you a mea culpa after you get out of office. We're not gonna go after you if you start a political rival or anything. We're not gonna go after you. We're just gonna agree that, hey, unless you do something real egregious that requires an impeachment, we're not going to go after you. All right. We're going to leave you alone once you get out of office. That's been disrupted now. All right. It's a precedent has been set. All right. You don't think that Biden has a lot of shit that he could get, attacked on, that he can go after with? Like, come on. Like what's to stop a prosecutor, going after Biden for sniffing kids and being weird? Like, what's going to stop a prosecutor from doing that? All right. Is it going to be a valid case? No. Should anyone go after him? No. But you've gone a very case and you've blown it to a proportion. And like, even Chris Cuomo from CNN's going like, look, this isn't even good. Like, what are you doing here? There's even CNN said this wasn't a good case. They shouldn't have gone after him. Like, a lot of people are agreeing that this case that, that was brought against Trump is a bad case. We all agree with that. And you know what? Odds are this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. All right. It's more than likely what's going to happen. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. I would bet my bottom dollar this is going to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court's going to go like, yeah, no, this wasn't a fair trial at all. And they're either going to require a new trial, or they might dismiss it outright. I'm not entirely sure. Or they have they might deem it a mistrial because they've reserved that mistrial request. They've reserved that objection. So it's like this should have been a mistrial. Also, I don't know if they're going to talk about it. The government didn't even prove their case at all. Like, do we think Trump paid off Stormy Daniels? Yeah, of course he did. Of course he did. Do we believe that's election interference? No, it's not at all. Okay. We know for a fact it's not, because they never charged him with election interference. What do you think would have been a stronger conviction? Some false document records or election interference? Which one would have been stronger? So no, they don't have a case for that. Now, do we all think that, Donald Trump probably did all that? Yeah, absolutely. We all think, yeah, he paid off, blah, 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 blah. Do we think the government actually proved their case? No. No one who's read this and watched it and covered it like I did, no one believes that the government proved the case that Donald Trump committed false documents. There's a case for being levied against Conan and Weiselberg, but there's no case against Trump. Okay. There's no evidence except Conan saying this thing that Trump actually committed this crime. There's no case of that. So, I mean, see what happens. Look, I'm like on the fence. I kind of hope he goes to jail just because it would just boost his numbers like crazy. And I also don't want him to go to jail because it would just be terrible. So we'll see. July 11th, I think, is his sentencing date.
Okay? At the highest levels of power, all that matters is what's their political will to do. And the truth is there was no political will to try George W. Bush and Dick Cheney for war crimes. There is political will to stop Donald Trump for this. And look, I know you're a lawyer, and I'm sure you would kind of agree on this, that, look, if you had Donald Trump on videotape stabbing someone or something like that, or you had some clear crime that he had committed, and you went, look, we typically don't go and prosecute former presidents, but look, I mean, this is just so egregious, we cannot. This is every single one of these cases are novel legal theories where they've come up with some philosophical way.
Well, not all of them. These two New York ones, yes.
Okay, where they can spin this into something that they never would prosecute otherwise. Just so everybody understands, a hush money payment isn't illegal.
No.
It's not illegal to pay someone to say, hey, don't tell anyone about
it's just
this.
a contract.
That's right. It's just a contract. What they're saying is that this was a campaign expense and he didn't itemize it on his business records the right way. And with Cohen's testimony on this, I mean, it's pretty wild that they actually got.
Well, they got him
convictions out
because of the checks, okay? Because Cohen, they had to. I mean, you can't believe Michael Cohen. But the problem was, if this happened, you know, the tape, you have Trump and Cohen talking about it, happened. And Cohen is a rapacious liar. That's true. And you cannot like him for that. But Trump did it. It's just not a felony. And yes.
No, I disagree. There's no evidence that he actually did. He signed the checks, but the checks aren't the problem. It's saying like he didn't give legal services and shit like that, or he wasn't on a retainer. That's all on Michael Cohen saying so. That's him saying, I wasn't on a retainer. Okay, a retainer can be, I looked it up, that a retainer can be, I just want you available. I want you to drop everything if something happens. Okay. I've looked it up. The retainer can be that. And there's no evidence that there wasn't such a thing. It's just Michael Cohen saying something. So I disagree with Cohen here. It's like, it's not about the checks. There's nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing showing that he was reimbursing him specifically for the Stormy Daniels stuff. All right. There's that Trump knew about it. I mean, there's nothing showing that Trump knew that they were specifically reimbursing him for the $130K he gave Stormy Daniels. There's no proof of that. What there is proof of is Weisselberg knew. There's no proof that Trump knew. Just Conan saying we discussed it with Trump. That's all we got.
They've gone after people for having 2 sets of books, not people like Trump in circumstances. Now, what I get beaten up for when I'm in a different room is that I say there's a thing called prosecutorial discretion. All right. The idea that if I have the facts on Dave Smith, I'm going to prosecute him 10 times out of 10. It's not true. There has to be policy involved. Is this something I really care about? Is this the kind of crime we're trying to stop? We live this in your state too. DUI. DUI used to be no big thing. They had 3 different levels of it. Then all of a sudden it became a big policy. And now we all know, I'm sure in our own personal lives, God forbid that happens, how big a deal it is, and they're definitely going to come for you. These crimes are not those things. The Georgia case is something different. I don't know that you'll ever get to hear it. I do see it a little differently, though. I believe that this society does have administration of justice under law. Is it perfect? Of course not. Compare it to other places, looks a little better. But we haven't figured this out. You said novel legal theory as kind of like a pejorative about those New York cases, and I think you're basically right about that. Certainly this one that we're talking about. But there is this issue of this constitutional mechanism that if you're a president, you have to be impeached and removed, and then you are subject to the law. So, you know, and then people say, I don't know if you guys followed the Supreme Court thing. It was actually pretty interesting, where he was like, so what if Dave and I are running for the same office and he decides to just shoot me in the head while he's president of the United States? Is that okay? And his guys were like, yeah.
Especially Joe Biden can't lift a gun.
But he'll take you out back. He'll take you out back.
Yes. And then what happens is the mechanisms of power will come and impeach you, and therefore you are no longer immune, and therefore you're going to get impeached and charged with a crime. Boom. There we go. That's how our Constitution works. That's how it's written out.
So, look, here's something that I think I struggle with a lot in this business. And this is a Jordan Peterson quote. You have to ignore single factor explanations for complex situations. It's tempting. You want them. You want it to be simple. You want it to be obvious. But very often it isn't. Even this situation with
this whole thing's very obvious. I don't care what Chris Cuomo says. This is very obvious. Shouldn't be convicted. This is bullshit.
Trump, which I think politically kind of net probably winds up helping him and hurts all of us. Bill O'Reilly suggested to me on my show last night that Joe Biden should do the right thing for the country and pardon Donald Trump.
Don't just use the internet, unleash it with ultra-fast speeds.
He said he should call Governor Hochul, state crime. He should call Governor Hochul and say, pardon Joe Biden. Thank you, genius. Well, if you'd let me finish, you would have heard it. So,
sure.
But here's the problem with that. What happens if Joe Biden did that? Joe Biden pardons Trump of any federal crimes, okay? And Hochul clears him of this shit so we don't have to live through the sentencing, all right? And just so you know, when he is sentenced, July 11, he's going to appeal. They're going to go to sentencing. Even if he is sentenced, and I was wrong about this case, I thought it would be hung. And I don't think the guy's going to sentence him to time. I could be wrong again. But even if he is sentenced to time, he's not. You're never going to see him in a jumpsuit. He is going to appeal, and there is no reason to have a first-time offender incarcerated for an offense like this, even though it's a felony, it's an e-felony.
Well, listen, I'll say
it's 34, but it's sentencing, it's going to be the same transaction.
I would
it's
say
not that they caught him 34 times.
I would say if you zoom out, right, to kind of try to appreciate the Trump phenomenon. And again, I've never voted for Donald Trump, and I'm not planning on voting for him this time. I'm a big critic. I think he failed in a lot of important ways. I think his appointments were terrible. Government spending going up every year was terrible. His handling of COVID was terrible. Okay, there are some things I like about him, but if you zoom out and just try to look at this, what Donald Trump really embodied, and I think this was something that you guys at CNN during the rise of Donald Trump could never quite grapple with, and I think it's something that in the corporate media in general they had a tough time grappling with, was that people were so furious at the establishment that they went with the biggest middle finger they could get toward the establishment. And he basically was pointing his finger at DC and saying, drain the swamp. These guys are all stupid. They all make bad deals. I'm very smart. I'm going to make great deals. They've ruined the country, which this was even at the center of his slogan, Make America Great Again. There's an accusation in there, right? That's like, you ruined the country. And now I have to come back and save it. And this made everybody in the political and media class so furious that they lashed out and attacked Donald Trump. And then, of course, that made him that much more popular with his base, because the whole reason they liked him was because it was a big middle finger to you guys. And it's not like social conservatives thought Donald Trump was their guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they were like, yeah, he really believes in Jesus or something like that. But then as he starts pissing off all these powerful people, more so that he has the entire media class against him. Then you have, between the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Steele dossier, and the CIA and the FBI getting involved, they all basically try to frame him for treason. And they do this for years. You don't think Comey gave Hillary a mortal injury near the end of that election? I think he was, yes, I do, but I think he was forced into it. Really? Yeah, I think basically, I think well, listen, let me just make the point I'm making. We could get into that if we want to. But as you look at this, so they frame this guy for treason. He ends up beating that, although they certainly boxed him in and he wasn't able to get through a lot of the things he wanted to. Then in the year 2020, you have what is close to a color-coded revolution as you can get in the United States of America, between the protests in the streets, the attempted false flags like they did with Governor Whitmore, the October surprise, trying to frame Donald Trump supporters. Like, this is what the anti-lockdown Trumpers like. They overhaul the way we do voting in this country, feel however you feel about that. And Donald Trump is removed. Since then, he announces he's coming back running for president, and then the Justice Department is weaponized against him. His home in Mar-a-Lago is raided. All of these cases come down against him. I know Tucker Carlson made this point once, but we are escalating here. Like, and it's, you kind of wonder, if you map this thing out, where exactly are we going? And it seems to me, from my perspective, that the most powerful people who really run the government, and this never comes up on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, but shocker, American people who are actually a lot smarter than the people of those networks think you are. Did you know that the government isn't run by democratically elected officials? Were you aware that there's shadowy 3-letter agencies that have much more power than the democratically elected officials? Well, those people are letting you know that Donald Trump is not acceptable, and he will not be president of the United States again. Now, what they're prepared to do to make that happen, well, yeah, that's the big question. We'll see. I wouldn't put anything past them.
Look, I don't know about them. I've been doing this 25 years. I'm still trying to get my head around the idea that the FBI is a bunch of lefties. I can't tell you.
They're not lefties.
I can't tell you how different that is than my experience. Good men and women do the job for the right reason 9 times out of 10. I never really had a good relationship with the FBI until Trump was president, because all of a sudden he started attacking all the institutions, in my opinion, unfairly in a lot of cases. And all of a sudden I was defending these people who always hated that they would never give me any information about their
I think there's too much at CNN defending the institutions. Maybe that's not the job.
I'll tell you what, it was a weird, look, that's a good argument to make. And it was a weird situation to be in, because I've never had anybody in power attacking everything around them unless it served his purposes in the moment. And it was definitely very odd, even though I had a very strong indication going to those rallies that we were missing the value of his celebrity and how important it was for people to have an agent for their animus. And I thought he was going to win, and I was right. I thought he was going to lose. That was pretty easy. I mean, the election wound up being very close, but he was in bad shape, and people wanted him out. So that was it. I think this time he's got a very good chance to win. I don't know about
Trump's got a very good chance to win.
Of course he does.
If there was a fair election held today, I think there's no question.
I'll tell you what, though. I don't know, because it's going to be very close. And unfortunately, the election comes down to about 30 counties in the United States. And there's only one reason for that. And it's something that you probably believe more than I do. The party structure in this country is not a creature of the Constitution. We all know that, right? It's not a creature of law. It's just a tradition. It's a choice. The problem is it's a club structure where everybody in power has got to be in one of the clubs, right? That's the problem that the GOP is dealing with right now. You can't say you don't like Donald Trump because you're going to lose a primary, because very few people vote in primaries. The state party controls the primary, and they're going to beat you because he's going to cut their money if they don't come after you. And I'm not faulting him for that. That's the way the game is played. If I could wave a wand, and not deal with anything that matters to all of us, like the health of our kids and our families and stuff, but our collective polity, if we could get rid of the two-party system in this country, we'd be in a way better place. And here's why. I'm not a huge fan of polls. You can't find a poll where you won't find 3 out of 4 of Americans have the same concerns. 3 out of 4 common concerns about what you want to see happen, what you like, what you don't like. It's never on the agenda. It's never discussed. One of my problems with this case is we got at least 2 weeks now of lawfare coverage. And 2 more weeks where nobody's going to talk. We're not talking about long COVID, that's for sure. We're not going to talk about any of these things that happened during the pandemic. Nobody's going to bring it up. Bobby brings it up. When Bobby comes up, when RFK Jr. comes on the show, he says he would be in favor of enlisting a pandemic review. I have not gotten a response from the Trump or the Biden campaigns about it. And I don't blame them. If I were them, I would want to move on also. But if you could get rid of the two-party system in this country, I'm telling you, you'd be in a much better place.
Okay, so let me give you a couple dates here. So the date that they put it for the judge is when?
July 11th.
July 11th. Okay, the debate is June 27th.
Yeah,
the RNC is, I believe,
4
July
days after
15th,
that. Yeah.
right? How much do you think it's intentional for them to put the hearing 4 days before to make it unpredictable that maybe, just maybe, they're watching right now? Democrats would only do this assuming this is going to hurt Trump, right?
Right.
But reports just came out, Rob, if you can pull up the reports from CBS,
In the month
this
of
is just
April, he
helping
raised
Trump.
$50 million compared to $25 million Biden. Just in the first 14, 15 hours of what they announced, he's raised $53 million.
Yeah. I'm not
You guys hear
surprised.
that? $53 million he's raised in less than 24 hours. Okay. And this could end up being a $200, $300, $400 million next 4 weeks.
Well, with this trial, they've undone all of the re-examination of Trump of the last, let's say, year. People have been watching what's going on and figuring out what's going on, watching how he's behaved. I believe all of that was undone with this because his numbers have been struggling. Anybody should be killing Biden. Okay.
You guys got 1 day a week. You got Wednesdays.
No, but I'm saying just the idea of him should be enough. But all of that review that had kind of mitigated his strength in this.
I disagree. He's been struggling. All the polls I've seen, he's been above Biden, like significantly. It's not very clear that he's been struggling with Trump or with Biden. He's been pretty much on top of him.
Country has been erased by this. I'm not surprised he's raising the money. You can get ready to boo in 3, 2. I don't believe they timed it out to make people think he's not going to show up at the convention.
You don't think they timed it out?
I don't. I mean, this is a very typical calendar.
Okay. It's a position to take.
I think Cuomo may be accurate in the sense that it's a typical calendar. I think that's probably right. It's probably like a half right. It's probably like, it was more of a, oh, sweet, this is awesome. But then I'm sure when they saw it, it's like, oh, yeah, definitely, we're going to put this down here. So I think it wasn't quite, 100% let's do this to fuck him. But it was more of a, all right, we got, this calendar schedule. This is where we got anything a little bit before then? Oh, okay, we do. All right, sweet, boom. I think that's what happened.
They could have done it to.
Well, that's true. Nothing about the case is typical. That's true. I just try very hard to take things on their face with these things. And very often the truth is more than enough. What's going to be obvious is going to be more than enough. If they sentence him, it's just such a bad policy move. Now, I know that when I look at my phone, it will light up. Though luckily, most people in the center and left haven't hooked on to Patrick yet, but they will. They will. Because if you want to hear voices and selection, very few people deliver the way he does for valuetainment. So they'll start. So the clips will come out, and then the left will attack me for suggesting that there was something, that this was different because no one's above the law. And he did it. And he finally got what he deserves and blah, blah, blah. Because I've been getting beaten up for weeks during this trial, which, by the way, is okay. You're a smart guy, and I'm not condescending to you. I like what you do, and I like where you're coming from. It's kind of weird being a libertarian in our system. You don't really have a home, but it does kind of give you an out whenever you want because you don't have to be part of the other two. But, for me...
Yeah, I get to just be right about everything.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. There's a convenience in never having to own any of the conversations. But what I'm saying is...
No, I mean, listen, Chris, I own my track record. I do a show 3 days a week. I've been doing it. I don't know how many of you guys listen to it, but I've been doing it through... I have a track record just alongside yours. I'll put my track record up there, and I'm very proud of it. So I do have to own something. I was out there in real time, being against the lockdowns, being against the stupid mandates like outdoor mask mandate. It was so. Listen, this stuff wasn't that. I mean, I don't mean to bring the conversation
Why
back
do you
to
think
COVID,
they did it?
but listen, hold on. But listen, forget even why they did it, okay? Because I have my theories on that, but I don't know for sure. I don't know what's in people's hearts and minds. What I do know is that saying something like, "I'm vaccinated, and I need to force you to get vaccinated so that you protect me," was so profoundly stupid that the second someone said that, I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
And I'll tell you what, you can look this up for yourselves. There have been multiple studies that show, first of all, there's some basic things, right? Hospitalizations, 9 out of 10, once the vaccine came out, were unvaccinated people. That should matter, okay? Now,
Hospitalizations for what, Cuomo? What were the hospitalizations for? You can't just say hospitalizations. What were they for? Were they for COVID? Now, were they because of COVID? Or were they with COVID? Because it's a very key factor. All right. Did the people who are hospitalized there because they were hospitalized due to COVID? Or were they there for something else? And guess what? They just so happen to have COVID. So we're going to count it as a COVID thing.
You went through the iterations of the variants. Should they have changed? Yes. But it'll never happen. You'll never hear that where things stand today. Because if there's no review, it'll never happen. But the idea of why you were supposed to take the vaccine was very basic. And what did we see as a result? Now, they'll throw numbers about how many people died because they didn't take the vaccine. I don't know about those numbers. Mortality is a very tricky thing to pin down. You died with it, you died from it, I don't know. But here's something that really bothers me. Matching counties, right? Because you're kind of matching where people are, you're going to have some kind of general sense of lifestyle, okay? Republicans, unvaccinated, died in disproportionate percentages. Listen, I don't want it to be true. The data is what the data is. And there are 5 different studies on this. Now, die again.
And I'm sure we can find 5 other studies that shows you're wrong.
And it's a tricky thing because, well, was there over-indexed for obesity, heart disease? But they were taking them from the same areas. And it bothers me that it became a politicized decision. And you can't say it didn't. That's what it was. All of these things became politicized. That's what pissed me off. I didn't go after Byron Donald because I wouldn't go after him anyway. I like having him on the show. I think he's the future of the GOP. I think he's a good guy. I think you guys should take a serious look at him in your state. But you just switched because it was a different president. That's all that switched. The whole dynamic switched. That was my beef about that. With the later variants, we really had mistakes made in this, in my opinion. Now,
I agree with Cuomo. People, I think even I did it. We switched with the. Wait, did I? No, not really. No, because I didn't take it. I got vaccinated. Boo me. I had to for my work. So, and my wife just became pregnant, and I was faced like, all right, do I not get it and get fired, or do I get it and continue with my job and be able to take care of my family? That was my decision. All right. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I don't care. But yeah, no, I agree. People were for it when it was Trump, and then as soon as it wasn't Trump, then they were against it. There was plenty of that both sides. I agree with Cuomo on this.
A lot of them will disagree with me and say that's not true. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a scientist. It still did what it was supposed to do, and the boosters made up the lab. I don't know that that's true. And they are doing very little to find out what the vaccine is doing in people, and they're doing very little to find out what the virus is doing in people. And all the research that's coming out is saying those are our two biggest issues health-wise that we're dealing with.
Chris, I really hope you read the book that I just gave you, man, because it destroys all of these arguments. Look, the truth is that, and the evidence is overwhelming at this point, okay? Like, you can go through this. It is just pure science, pure facts and charts. All of the lockdowns, you can't find any trend if you look at the lockdown states versus the not lockdown states, or the lockdown countries versus the not lockdown countries, the counties where there was mass compliance versus the counties where there wasn't mass compliance, the counties where there was more vaccine passports versus where you can't find any trend in any of it. The truth is that the virus did what the virus was going to do, and none of these government policies did a thing to slow it down. But
you don't think that hospitalizations went down because of the vaccine?
Listen, read the book, man. I'm telling you. No, it's not a conclusive point. But what these policies did do is they destroyed the lives of tens of millions of people. And by the way, Chris, this is why there's so much anger about this stuff, okay? This is why people are so furious and why people do kind of want to see somebody, because listen, I give you a lot of credit for doing this. Like, I really am grateful to you for being on this stage with me here. The thing about it is like, I think from my perspective, and I really do think I speak for millions of Americans when I say this is all we get. You. Like, there's no one else. Fauci's never going to do a debate like this. None of the other top establishment scientists will go. Well, let me finish my point. Yeah, because they're cowards and they're wrong. None of them will go on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? What did he end up? You remember the pot that was offered for that doctor who was like, everybody chipped in? I think you chipped in for it. Yeah, like everyone, he would raise millions of dollars. They won't debate RFK. They won't do any of this. And so it's like, look, I think a lot of people are angry about this stuff. Now, back to the point you were making here, okay? When we're talking about specifically the vaccine passports. Okay, this was during the Omicron wave.
Right.
We're talking late 2021.
Right.
There has been, at this point, you had almost 2 years of COVID hysteria, with the establishment being wrong about every single prescription along the way. And meanwhile, there's also mass censorship of any of the experts who come out against it. I mean, the Great Barrington Declaration, that happened in the fall of 2020. This is a full year later after that, after all these experts came out and said the government got this entire response wrong and ruined tens of millions of people's lives. But listen, if you look at, there's no question about it.
They were seen as a minority group.
Yeah, but they were a group of experts. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the ones who
I'm just saying they got shot down.
If you look at what Omicron did, okay, this was after mass vaccination, okay? It tore through the unvaccinated areas and the vaccinated just alike. You cannot look at one chart and say, oh, look, this area had high vaccination rates, and therefore Omicron didn't really come in here. No, tore through it just the same as it did everybody else.
It tore through it in terms of cases, not severe cases.
It's not true.
Look, I agree. I agree. Well, look. Again, we can look at the data. You can put the data up. I mean, this is what I do. But what I'm saying is this. This is
what I do too, with a much better track record, Chris. I'm just being honest. This is the truth.
That's a good one. That was a good one. Yeah, that's what I do too. Just I'm more right than you are. I am right than you are. That was a good shot.
I don't know that you have a better track record. I really don't know that you have a better track record.
So let me ask you this. Right. Do you think lockdowns worked? Did they cause more harm than good? By the way, there was no good that was caused, but do you think they caused more harm than good?
The correct answer is you can look again. I wish these things were that simple. Okay. I can argue yes, I can argue no. The government will say yes.
What's your stance though? That he's not asking what the government says, what the other people, they're asking what you think. That's why no one takes you seriously, Cuomo.
No, but I'm asking
people who are in charge of lockdowns will say yes.
Do you think that lockdowns mitigated the virus and were not offset by the catastrophic harm that lockdowns caused?
That's a different question. And that's hard to know. It caused so much pain in this country that it's hard to say. How do you value what they believe in terms of lives?
Go look at the Johns Hopkins study on lockdowns. They looked at all the lockdown areas versus the areas that didn't lock down. They found no difference in mitigating the virus. It was just a disaster. And I was against the lockdowns from the very beginning. I was against the ridiculous outdoor mask wearing. I was against all of the mandates, all of people being deemed non-essential, all of this stuff.
I get it. But it wasn't just America. You make it sound like,
I'm against it everywhere.
But what I'm saying is, but it matters that it happened everywhere. It matters. And it happened in other places longer. And Yeah, look at Sweden. How did it work out for them?
What? Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Sweden, by the way, here's how it worked out for Sweden. Lowest excess mortality rate in all of Europe. That's how it worked out for Sweden.
They had rates of illness in there,
yes,
and then they didn't build up the herd immunity they thought they were going to by going that way.
Okay,
and the UK
why
wound
is
up watching them and reversing course.
And why is it that Sweden has the lowest excess mortality rate in all of Europe? Because of all of the deaths that were caused by the lockdowns. That's why. They were the ones who didn't do that to themselves. And man, I mean, you look at, Pat brought up the number of small businesses that were ruined during the lockdowns. That's the least of it. And that's huge. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But you're talking about suicides, families breaking up, children falling behind, just things that people will never, and not just that, but also just, look, here's the thing, right? And this is what I think the media class never really grapples with. If I were to ask you, what was the cost of the war in Iraq? Okay, what was the cost of it? Now, you might try to find what you go, okay, we spent $2 trillion on the war in Iraq. Okay, there were 1 million Iraqis died as a result of that war. Over 10 million were displaced. You could look at the thousands of America's bravest young boys who killed themselves, tens of thousands, if you want to count the ones who blew their brains out in the aftermath of it. Okay, but then you know what the cost of it was? Everything that we're living.
Oh, come on, dude. Don't use Wikipedia. Look, if you can't use Wikipedia for for a citation in an essay, can't use it in a debate.
Through today in our country. Donald Trump being president, the lack of trust in the corporate media, the culture war, everyone being pitted. Like, these things have costs for your society down the road that are impossible to measure. And the cost of the lockdowns, it's going to be another 15, 20 years before we look back and really recognize it. By the way, one of the costs of the lockdowns was the Summer of Love. The riots that caused billions of dollars in property damage across you remember the fiery but peaceful riots of 2020?
I was in it.
There was, they were, that was a cost of it. I mean, those riots didn't just come out, and it wasn't just a coincidence that they came on the heels of 3 months of lockdowns. Anyway, I'm just saying that,
I'm just telling you, the people that I talked to who made these decisions stand by them and say,
I believe it.
But look, but here's the thing, and again,
I'm sure Dick Cheney stands by the war in Iraq too.
The whole party does, by the way. We went into the wrong country, and you talk about censorship, which is definitely something that is real and is getting more difficult to see. When we started reporting that yellow cake wasn't real, and Wilson came out and all that stuff happened, Bush came out and said, you're hurting operational security on the ground by seeding this stuff. The American people stopped watching the news. And that's what changed the reporting cycle. So I know what it's like to have people come after you and be censored. I like podcasts. I have a podcast. I believe in this space. I think it's the future of media. I think digital media is the future. But
yeah, that's because you can't get a job anywhere else, though. And if I remember correctly, I don't know for sure, but your numbers aren't that great either.
the idea that we're in the same space and deal with the same scrutiny and all those things, they're not. They're different worlds. And I talk to the people that you are talking about. So I have an understanding of what's going on. I'm telling you, they stand by their decisions.
Yeah, but I'm not like arguing that these people don't stand by their decisions. I'm just saying.
Right, but I'm saying it's easy to say they're wrong, but these people where this is all they do say.
So Chris Cuomo has 262 subscribers. Okay, he has 262 subscribers. Let's see. So he has 4.1K views. All right, he's got one that's 250, 240. 297, 17, 26, 5.7, 5.56, 150. So he's got decent views. All right. He's got decent views. They're not great. They're not the best. Only time his views are really up is when he's talking about Trump. Seems that's when his views are up. It looks like. Okay.
If we hadn't done those things, there would have been more death. If we hadn't done those things, it would have been even worse.
Here's the problem.
So I'm saying let's have a review of it instead of a podcast versus the head of the CDC. The truth is we don't have a panel.
Yeah, well, look, the problem with that is that just like the 9/11 investigation, it ends up being a total sham. And none of
that commission was not a sham. That was a good report. They had good recommendations.
Remember? Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, like as if we actually got
There's 7 pages on it in there.
Yeah, and okay.
About the conspiracy theories about Building 7 and what they believe the reality is. It's right in there.
Yeah. Okay. And then they had the 28 redacted pages that stayed redacted for years and years after that, which basically only came out when everyone didn't care enough to find out that there was high Saudi involvement in 9/11, and we continued to prop up.
And don't forget the people we can't talk about. Okay, people we can't talk about. Don't forget about them.
Saud since then, and by the way, fought on the same side as Al Qaeda in Libya, Syria, and Yemen. But anyway, regardless of that, look, I understand that you're for this theoretical investigation into COVID, but here in the real world, the investigation has been done. I mean, the problem with you saying, look, when I talk to these experts, they really believe it. It's like, yeah, except for the head of the CDC who didn't believe it. And what happened to him? He was banished, never to come back again, right?
All of these people. Robert Redfield, I just talked to about all of this.
On your show now.
He does not agree with about 100% of what you're saying. About lockdowns, about masks, about the vaccine, about ivermectin, about long COVID, about...
Why should we give a shit what he thinks? Like, honestly, like here's the thing. The difference between these two, all right? Chris is like, well, these people, these government people, they say one thing, all right? And Dave is going, yeah, everyone else doesn't believe them because they feel like they've been fed a lie, which they were, about COVID. So the trust in them is zero. So just because you keep saying, oh, well, they agree with me, yeah, that doesn't help your argument. That hurts it more than you actually think, because we don't really give two shits what they say, because we don't like them, because they lie to us for the majority of the time. So he keeps going back to, oh, well, they talked about it. They agree. They stand by it. We don't care. Okay. The government, like, when has the government ever said, like, oh, we were wrong about this. We were wrong about X. Let's do X and make up for that. We're sorry for X. Like, when has the government ever apologized? Hey, we were wrong about this, and we're going to do this to pay back for how wrong we were. Do they ever? No.
All of these things. He does not agree with you.
Well, maybe you're right. Come sit
wrong.
next to me and I'll tear him to shreds. What is he going to say? That ivermectin is horse dewormer? Is that the argument he's going to
say?
with?
It doesn't work in the research for treating COVID.
Okay, but
that it may not hurt you, but be
really
very careful. Don't give people suggestions like that. That's what he'll say.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't really giving people suggestions on it. I'm just saying people medicine.
But what I'm saying is, when you weaponize something like they don't want you to like this is bad, it obviously encourages it, because ivermectin wound up having a rush on it. And there's no other explanation for it than that. What I'm saying, and it's not just a theoretical review, it would be a review. And you can have your feelings about what building mysteriously fell, which is point of some conspiracy. I'm saying it was the best chance to get to a better place. And my question about this is, you say there are millions of people. Why do you think that the right fringe of the GOP never discusses these issues? The most aggressive out there, what they will talk about, Pizzagate, whatever it is, they won't talk about this.
About what?
This conversation.
Well, if I'm being honest, I think the reason why there's not a lot of political will from the Republicans to really talk about this is because there's partisan issues here. The Republicans totally failed the country too on this issue. And DeSantis here in Florida, I think maybe if you guys are in Florida, you might have the idea that was like the typical Republican gubernatorial response, but it wasn't. He was the outlier for walking back lockdowns and saying he'll never do mandates again. It was known, DeSantis and Abbott then after DeSantis walked them back, but the rest of the country full of Republican governors were basically as bad as the Democrats.
Yeah.
Listen, the reason
100%, he's 100% right. Like it was the outlier. Like the Republicans failed just as bad as the Democrats.
And they won't talk about it, okay, is because, you say millions and millions. The numbers aren't even close. The reason this doesn't show up in an issue preference thing, like, what are you going to vote on? This is nowhere in the top dozen, okay? So that's one reason that they won't.
Yeah, okay. I think what he's talking about is the COVID review. It's because we don't trust you guys to do an actual decent review and be honest with us about it. All right, we don't trust you. That's why. So that's why, we're not going to trust you. We're just going to go with people who don't have a political stake in the game and just give us, see what they say about it. That's why. That's what he's missing here. He thinks like, oh, we don't care about it. It's like, we care about it. We just don't trust government people to do an honest review of this. Because when has the government said, hey, we fucked up here, we need to make this right?
Won't talk about it. Why would I talk about what people say they're not going to vote on? Okay. The second reason is they don't agree with you. Okay. Even the guy who's running the panel in the House right now, who's a doctor and a Republican and a Trump supporter. Okay. He does not agree with your assessment.
I'm not a Trump supporter or a Republican.
What I'm saying is,
sense.
putting aside that maybe you should be a little open, that maybe some of these people know things that you don't, and you would want to see that tested on a panel of their peers.
Okay, so
I don't know why we would all want.
Chris, listen, it's a totally reasonable thing for you to look at me and say, listen, there are doctors who are saying this. Why don't you be open to they might know some things that you don't? Okay, fair enough. But I got to say, again, for years, you were the #1 show on CNN, and you never had this energy. You were certain that the unvaccinated were the scourge of America. You were certain, as you told Congressman Donalds, that he was a dummy for not getting vaccinated, even though he had already had COVID. You did not, when you hosted your show on CNN, have the attitude that, like, hey, everybody should stop acting like they have so much certainty. We should all kind of listen to the other side. So it's kind of rich hearing it come from you now.
Because you're not giving me the benefit of the change. In the beginning, the first 2 variants of this virus was a very different proposition than later. Your apology, Christians. I definitely apologize, submit myself, prostrate myself before you for your redemption, that I wish that I had the foresight to be caught up in that mix as we saw that it was changing and not push harder on them not responding to the change. I think it would have really helped. I'm not saying I would have had that much influence, but I'm saying it would have definitely mattered to the cohesiveness of this country. If after Omicron, let's say, okay, so you're summer of 21 going into 22, mandates are in place, people are starting to buck back in different areas and you have it spiking things and they're revising about super spreading and all this other stuff. If at that time there had been a revision of removing the mandates, realizing that the boosters are a maybe, and there would have been a relaxation of it. Now, I'm sure that I'm going to get beat up for this and they're going to say, wow, you're crazy. If we had done that then, the number, all right, maybe. I'm just saying that in terms of how people felt, and politics is a big part of that. I think to the little man that you have on your bucket there, when they made Tony Fauci and Birx the spokespeople for the U.S. government, Tony, I'm sure will second this. I said to him, this is a mistake. You guys elect people, to Dave's point, I don't share the mystery 3-level agencies, deep state stuff, but you elect.
CIA has no power.
It's not that they don't have power. It's just I don't believe it to the depth that you do. What I'm saying is, though, the president of the United States should have been talking to you every day. And he should have been owning the changes in messaging. Trump and Biden, both of them leaned on Fauci. Scientists do not exist in a political space.
You don't think Fauci does?
I'll tell you why. Look, Tony Fauci's problem with gain of function is so typical science versus politics. When you say, as a scientist, so they said no more gain of function. So this commission got together and changed the definition of gain of function. So then we did that research. So I wasn't doing gain of function research under that old definition that you're talking about. To a scientist, yeah, okay. To a politician, you're a dead man if you say that. And that's why he's having so much trouble.
No, I mean, just listen, anyone just being honest would have a problem with that. I mean, what they did in the Wuhan lab was clearly gain of function by any reasonable
well, not by their definition.
Right. They made a sneaky definition and changed it so that he could get away with lying about it under oath before Congress. By the way, you remember when Rand Paul asked him straight up whether he's getting royalties from the big pharmaceutical companies or not, and he refused to disclose the information? Come on, Chris. This guy is as corrupt as it gets, man. And the fact that you guys all just gave him fluffy interviews through the whole thing, man, was really a disgrace.
He puts out an income statement every year. Comer and these guys have been very aggressive in going after him. They haven't made a single recommendation to the DOJ to follow up on anything yet. They're pulling him back on the Senate. They want to get into his emails. They get into all these things. Why? Because they have this other guy who's called a senior advisor to Fauci. He wasn't a senior advisor. It's a title. I don't know why that guy was saying what they were saying. They should definitely haul him in. They should figure out why he was saying what he was saying in those emails. They haven't tied it to Fauci. And if they do, then they do. But it is a little curious that as enthusiastic as we are these days about prosecuting our political opponents, they haven't even made a reference to the DOJ about it.
Can I ask you a question?
I'm telling you, it's noise.
A very different question. Why do you think 2020 Trump only got 9% of the African-American vote, and Democrats have owned the black vote for decades, since 64. Why do you think it's 22% now to Trump?
I think that there's several reasons, okay? Now, do I know whether or not that's going to translate to the polls on Election Day? Yeah. I do not know. Do I think he's going to get 22% of the black vote? I want to be careful. No, I don't. But minority vote is a different thing. The Latino community is the most robust growth and voting bloc in this country. Asian Americans writ large, right? Not just Chinese, Japanese, but that entire region, Southeast Asia included, East Asia included, is also very robust. He gets a lot of those voters also. Why? Disgust is in high demand. People are disgusted. I sit in many rooms like this with people who agree with you guys about nothing, but they match your anger. They are very, very angry. I sit and meet and talk to minority people who feel betrayed. They're driven nuts by the migrant situation because so much of the emergency services that get sucked up by that population are in their communities. The change in policing that was supposed to be for them on the left flank has made them more endangered in their communities. The economic recovery, while everybody likes to brag about how good it's been for minorities, they don't feel it. Now, it's not fair to put them all in one block. There are plenty of rich minorities, yes, but socioeconomically, you have a disproportionate distribution, right? As you go down the socioeconomic ladder, relatively, you start having more and more minorities, right? You have more poor white people in the country than poor black people, but by percentage, it's different. That's why they're reconsidering it. That we are in a time of change, and Joe Biden is not getting it done for the Democrats. He is not making their message. He does not seem like, the joke will be, we may not even make it. But he is failing to connect with their base, and they will move. People will move. It can take time. But we are at a low point in our party politics. We have never had two unanimously bad choices for president before in our history.
2016 was pretty rough. But
can you play this clip, Rob? And the reason why I'm asking this question,
Hillary Clinton, all her negatives, was no one thought she was going to drop dead. I mean, I know they played.
Yes, no, I get your point. No, listen, it's a fair point.
Do you think black people trust Fauci?
It depends on who they listen to.
Can you play this clip, Rob?
It depends on what you
I want to show you two clips. Go play this clip. Go ahead.
Man, even fucking black people that watch CNN don't trust Fauci. Come on.
So what vaccine?
I'm not having time yet. I'm waiting for them to be able to.
Oh, you should get it first. Okay, that way you won't give it to them.
I thought I would give it to them if I did it.
No, not at all. In fact, we got to get you vaccinated so that if you were to get infected, you could pass it on to them. So you're actually protecting your family by getting vaccinated.
Well, I heard that it doesn't cure it, and it doesn't.
That's true.
Stop you from getting it.
No.
So
on the very, very, very rare chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, you don't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you got infected. It's very, very good at protecting you.
Just an Anacostia, so get up there. Okay.
All right, see you later.
Okay.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot on a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay,
you know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason.
All right, hey, just breaking news. Looks like Biden signs executive order shutting down southern border. Wait, you mean he didn't need extra power to do that?
I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
It's much more serious than the flu.
Well, the flu killed a lot of people.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. How many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, now, is that, again, I hope he asked this question. Now, is that from COVID or with COVID? Because guess what? A motorcycle death was considered death from COVID. So come on.
Well, the number that you all giving that died. That's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely. Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on. You're right. But I'm like millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an incentive. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear.
The best part is he keeps talking shit. By the way, just how beautiful is that, man?
For sure.
Dude, I gotta, after this, I gotta go down to Baltimore. I gotta, with that video, and try to find that house so I can just salute that guy. Isn't it just amazing? What's crazy about it is here you have Fauci and these local Baltimore politicians going through the hood in Baltimore, knocking on doors, and they're wrecking him. And it's not even like, listen, now with hindsight 2020, because at the time they were putting out the video and mocking those, these dumb black people in the inner city don't know what's going on. They were right. And Fauci was wrong. And Fauci was totally, it should be, I mean, you should lose your license. You should be shunned from society. For him to make the claim, to look at somebody when none of the trials and none of the data at the time supported this idea that if you get it, you might get sick, but you won't even feel it. And you can't give it to anybody else. This was nothing. And I heard, actually, by the way, Jay Bhattacharya, who wrote the foreword to this book, he said at the time, he goes, whoa, Fauci is way overplaying his hand. Like none of the data justifies him making this claim.
It's not none of the data. Here's where they were wrong, okay? They weren't wrong. Here's where it didn't it didn't become what they wanted it to be.
Look, no, they were wrong.
Here's
I know many people who got the vaccine and got COVID and were very sick and gave it to other people.
So
they were wrong.
With the later variants. So do I. I know people too. You'd be surprised.
By the way, these are, just to be clear here, just in case, because all this time gets muddled together, okay? Yeah. These are the later variants. The vaccine was not available for the first variant, okay? The vaccine was not available. Like, these are all the later variants are what we're talking about here.
No, that's not true. You had it for the second and third, and then it really dropped off. The first, look, again, the idea that you guys enjoy the owning, I think is part of the problem, okay? I know there's something satisfying about it.
Really? So it's part of the problem. We're enjoying them getting owned and getting held accountable. But it wasn't a problem when you're demonizing people for not getting the vaccine. That's not the problem. But the problem is you guys are so into owning these guys. Yeah, because you fucking lied to us and we're fucking pissed off about it.
And it works great for media and for clips and to get you enragement. But it doesn't move the ball.
Chris, man, you're telling me we could play that video of the way you and all your colleagues demonize the unvaccinated? Were they not trying to own us? It's only I'm the one not getting vaccinated. No, it's in response.
Not getting vaccinated matters.
Yes, it's in response to all of you guys trying to own us for years from all of the halls of power. But now that you were wrong about everything, we're going to point that out.
Yes. So hold on. Two things. One, vengeance, good. I hope it feels good. If you think it's going to stop it from happening again, you're wrong.
Well, here's why. No one's going to fucking believe you when you come back with this again. We're going to be like, hey, remember COVID-19 when you guys were wrong? We're not going to believe you this time. Fuck off.
You're wrong. I don't think it's vengeance either. I'm saying if that's the instinct, you tried to own us, we're going to try to own you. That's not true. But that's why I'm here, okay? And that's why I have a show that has guys like you on more than any other show on television, okay? Now, they changed the definition of vaccine, not for this vaccine. They changed it.
Yes, it was for this vaccine. Stop it.
They changed it when they started doing RNA. This is technically not a vaccine because it doesn't make you immune. Now, here's what they got wrong. They do the testing in record time, right, which nobody was upset with when Trump was president, but it gets done.
Lots of people
they were quiet. 95%, they say efficacy. What did that mean? 95% was severe illness, symptoms that you could recognize that may hospitalize you. That's what they didn't have, not sick. They then took that and made it into a cell of, so if you take the vaccine, does that mean like polio, you don't get it? No. That means that even if you get it, you won't be that sick. And then here's the mistake they made. Because you don't have that much virus in you and you're not that sick, you probably won't pass it on to somebody else. And that was a big part of the cell that became less and less true over time. And the messaging didn't stand.
Okay,
you
by the way,
a therapeutic.
But by the way, as somebody who was, and I agree with what you're saying, we were in different positions. You were the #1 show at CNN. I was doing a podcast on the internet. But as somebody who was not in that bubble that you were in and was talking to experts who were outside of the establishment, the idea that there were going to be variants of this virus and that the vaccine would do a worse and worse job with all of the variants was the easiest thing to predict.
That's not true.
And experts did predict this.
That's not. Yes. No, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying that the people they were using to do the measurements did not see it. And then
no, the people you were talking to didn't. The people I was talking talking to did see
you were,
this
so you were
coming.
talking to people at the NIH and the CDC who was doing
No,
the
that's the whole point. I wasn't. So I was talking, but there were plenty of experts outside. See, this is the problem here, Chris, is that you, which is the exact opposite of what the journalist's job is to do, is that you hold up here the government officials as if they're the real experts and nobody else is an expert. I just gave you a book that was written by Tom Woods, has a degree from Harvard and Columbia, and the forward by Dr. Badia. He is a professor at Stanford.
Okay.
These are legit experts, okay? They didn't work for the CDC or the NIH, but the job of a journalist is to always start from a place of skepticism toward those in government.
There's no question about it. And when we went down and it started to change, I wish that I had been more aggressive about that, and I wasn't, because I didn't see it. Now, I've had a lot of time to read into this, especially because of my own sickness. And I see things that most people still don't know and haven't been reported on. I'm one of the only people who reports on long COVID.
Sorry, I was an asshole.
I'm sorry you were an asshole. My point is this. My point is this. I don't need to have these conversations. They don't particularly rate well. I get a lot of criticism from people in power. I get
good. That should be a badge of honor, man. You're a newsman, right?
It depends on the look. You don't know me, okay? The idea that I am conflict averse is silly. The idea that I don't test power is silly. What I'm talking about here is you are pretending, because you can. You have the luxury of not worrying about what happens when you say what you say. I work for a place that will get a
What? Come on.
phone call from someone that they care about, okay? It will matter to them. And you can say, well, they work for this 3-letter agency that are all, bad
Chris,
people.
if I had, let me tell you something. This is what's really infuriating about you saying that, right? I understand the pressures at CNN where powerful people could make a phone call and then you could be in a lot of trouble.
No, it's not accountability.
No, here, let's talk accountability. If I had your track record on COVID, I'd be out of business, period. No one would listen to me anymore. I would have no way of making money. I'd be ruined.
I would argue the reverse.
Absolutely ruined.
If you didn't tell people that there were easy ways to get past COVID and that the vaccine was a joke and everything that happened was a joke, I don't think you'd be in business. I think if you weren't doing these things, I don't think you'd have the same platform because it sells very well in digital media.
No, I mean, it's just, first off, I never said the things that you just said. The thing is that, yes, you're right. Me being against lockdowns, against mandates, against the corruption of big pharma, again, yes, that did help.
No, and the
sure.
vaccine, you don't think people should have taken the vaccine?
I already said that I do think there was a group of people early on who should have taken the vaccine.
What is that group?
I said already. I'll say it. I think old sick people who had never had COVID.
And the people who were with them?
No, I don't agree with that.
Really?
I think there was a strong argument for that demographic. By the way, old sick people who had COVID, probably unnecessary to take the vaccine. Your likelihood of dying after you had already beat COVID once plummeted way down. Natural immunity is stronger than the vaccine, as it is with almost all.
And by the way, it's interesting.
All of the studies show that hybrid immunity, which is having gotten it from the virus and also having the vaccine, is the best level of immunity. That's what the research says. It's
not true.
That's what the research says.
Yes, but to say what you're saying, my dad, when we were talking as a family on who should take the vaccine, should not, what are you going to be doing? Here's what we're doing. I'm not taking it. Wife's not taking it. Kids are not taking it. My dad, who's a conservative, took it. And he was 78 or 79 at the time when he took it. I think something like that, right? 4 years ago, he took it. And he got the boosters. 2 years later, he got COVID and pneumonia at the same time at 80 years old. Literally. Do you remember that when he got COVID and pneumonia? How bad was it? Yeah, he was bad. But guess what? He's here with us at 82.
Strong.
So there's a part of it. I agree. The fact that, for a certain section of a community,
well,
I
listen,
think it was.
and that's a good point, Pat. But here's the thing: in the real world, what was going on during all those clips that you were showing of them demonizing the unvaccinated? This was, again, to put this in the time frame here, right? This was after the rollout. Okay, so after the vaccine was made accessible for everybody in America, and they really did make it very accessible for everybody. And then not enough people were getting the vaccine, and then they started pushing employer mandates and things like that. Ultimately, Joe Biden lost at the Supreme Court with his OSHA mandate, which would have made every midsize and big company force their employees to get vaccinated. Okay, but about this point, when there's still some people being hesitant, that's when you see everybody demonizing the unvaccinated. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. When they started rolling these things out, okay, so I know someone, a family friend, right? This is a kid who was at a grad school, 25, something like that at the time. They forced him to get double vaccinated. And then the next year, they forced him to get boosted a month after he had COVID. This is a healthy 25-year-old. And so, you could talk about, if you want to split hairs about the people living with a vulnerable person. No, I think if that vulnerable person got vaccinated, that's enough. But there's just no scientific argument in the world why a 25-year-old kid who's already double jabbed, who just had COVID, a month later should get a booster. And yet on CNN and all the other major networks, they made it seem like that wasn't even a thing. It was just, you're a bonehead, you're an idiot, you're what's ruining this country. And the craziest thing about it was that they were blaming the unvaccinated for why you don't have freedom anymore. They're the reason why all the rest of you guys can't enjoy your freedom. When the reality is, the reason the rest of us could enjoy our freedom was because of the corrupt government who was doing this to us for no reason. And man, it just would have.
But that's not true.
No, I know it's 100% true.
No, that's how you feel.
No, that's what I believe
is they did have a basis for why they were doing it. They believed that the numbers weren't coming down fast enough. They believed that if they didn't get a certain vaccination rate, that it would stay that way and continue to kill people that they didn't want to die. So they pushed it. Now you can say I disagree with their findings. That's even more reason to have it all reviewed. I'm sorry, Dave. I don't mean it to be condescending or insulting. I don't mean it that way. But you can't really have the confidence that you know all the answers, and there's no reason for anybody to tell you any different. I don't agree with that. Listen, there are better answers out there that we aren't getting, and COVID is still making people sick. There's a variant flying through Asia right now that's more contagious than they thought it was going to be. It's going to wind up coming back here. I'm not saying there's going to be anything like what we lived through already. There's no will for it. And no politician is going to put themselves into a position where no one's going to comply. But people are going to get sick in your life, okay? And not from COVID. I'm saying from what happened to them a year ago, 2 years ago. Maybe it's the vaccine. Maybe, well, not definitely.
So again, some breaking news. The MSNBC was wrong. He didn't sign an executive order to shut down the border. He signed an executive order to do border security measures.
From the virus, maybe from the vaccine. They're going to get sick. We are not working on therapeutics at the rate. They are not putting the money into research. They are not. There are databases, but they are not on it the way you would think they'd be on it. And a big reason is because of this divide. They don't want to engage with a population that they believe is just antagonistic. So much so that even though, and look, all due respect, I don't care who you vote for, the anti-vax Trump supporter correlation is very strong, okay? But his people don't have this conversation with you. You don't have anyone, even Marjorie Taylor Greene is not saying, and yeah, let's not forget about that vaccine. Let's start talking about that now. None of them. And that's what matters to me. You want to blame me? Good. What I'm saying is, what matters to me is that the things that need to be done are not going to happen. If Trump wins, I don't think it happens. If Biden wins, I don't think it happens. And that's why I think there has to be public will for this. So you can be angry. I think it's a great motivator in this situation. There are plenty of things that I think you should be angry about. But what are you going to do about it? The only way you can get any of this rectified is by having a body that has to be respected, put out the findings. Some of them will match Dave's, some of them won't. And that next time, here are your things, you can't do this, forget the WHO, we got to get our own pandemic board back, and here are the kind of people who should be on it, whatever they come up with. That's the only way. Otherwise, you know the old quote, right? What happens to people who don't learn the lessons? They'll repeat them.
Yeah, well, I sure do agree with that. I think that the silver lining in all of this is that trust in corporate media is at an all-time low. Trust in every other institution in this country has evaporated. And the truth is that you'll never be able to do this to us again because we simply won't let you. People won't believe it next time. And
what is trust high in America today? What is trust high in?
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
He's saying if trust is not high in media and the government,
what is it high in?
Oh, well, I think that there's tremendous trust in the alternative internet media landscape.
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, I'm not saying there shouldn't be. I'm
Look,
saying
Chris, you could just look at the market on this. Look at the numbers Joe Rogan gets versus the numbers CNN gets. Way more people have flocked over to him than are watching CNN because they trust him.
Look, I'm happy. I'm happy for Joe Rogan's success. Good for him. The highest rated thing in media, and let's just put it all in one basket. You got the nightly news that was supposed to be dead 20 years ago. Still gets 9 million people a night. So the idea that nobody cares about that, obviously they do. They're watching. What I'm saying is
versus
this:
40 million used to be a lot more than 9.
Yeah, but you measure that over a month.
No, I get that.
Not one day.
No, Cronkite used to be,
Oh, there's no question. It's stratifying. It's changing, and I think that's good. I think that I'm saying that there's no trust in anything.
No, I don't think you're right. I don't know that I have like polling data on this, but I'd imagine if I could poll the valuetainment audience, there'd be tremendously high trust.
All right. So that's all I've got today. Like I said, I had an hour out around 9:30. It's 9:22. It looks like they're going to get into something else. I'm going to redo this again. I'll probably do the rest of it tomorrow. Yeah. So, but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was a very interesting debate, and Chris Cuomo looks like he's winning any points here. He's really just hell bent on saying, no, I'm all good. It's all good. And then, I agree that this should be, we should have a panel of, the whole COVID lookers and shit like that. The problem is people don't trust you guys. They don't trust you guys because all the, a bunch of medical people lied to us. If you really want a panel to, for people to trust, you should probably just go to all the naysayers in the beginning. Okay. In the beginning of COVID, all the naysayers who said, this doesn't look like, maybe you should do that. Maybe mix in a few, people that were, a little, were like, this was good. Maybe. But let's be honest, it's not going to happen because, there's not going to, like, I agree with pushing it. I don't think it'll happen. And I think he's right in this sense that no one's really pushing for it. But, there are people who are pushing it, but it's just not government people that are pushing for it. It's people that aren't in government that are pushing for it. So that's where Cuomo's wrong. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a very interesting debate. Like I said, I'll finish the rest up tomorrow. I hope you all have a good day. Peace out, and I will see you later.